Hey, how you doing? This is John, and welcome to John's Logbox. First off, I wanted to apologize. This is scheduled for with Mandy Summers, but she's having some family obligations, and I figured I'd go live anyway. If she shows up, she shows up. If she doesn't show up, we'll reschedule. So I sent out the link to a couple of people. Just because I like talking comic books. You know, I said that Mandy couldn't show up, but she has family obligations, so I had some free time. So let's talk comic books. So first off, we brought in Marcus Killigrew, who's been my moderator.
Hey,
Hello, Marcus.
nice to see everybody. Nice to see everybody.
You have a good Christmas?
I had a great Christmas. Thanks. Thanks.
And we
Except
also,
for the drive back from Florida took about 12 hours.
oh God, 12 hours in a
So
ice
much traffic.
And then we also have Cooper, who also goes by the name of the telepathic bunny. How you doing? So, you know, I apologize for everybody who's disappointed. You know, Mandy has a hardcore following, and I don't blame anybody if they get a little upset. But I scheduled the time. I'm on vacation right now, so I could talk a little longer and later.
Just sorry, guys, we're not as sexy.
Speak for yourself, Cooper.
I have a Marvel shirt.
You're pretty hard, yeah. HAQ, how you doing?
Yeah. I'm not as sexy, but you know, John is. You know, yeah.
I try. I work out. You know, I try to eat as many Miller wafers as possible. Breakfast of champions. So whatever. All right, Goody Two Shoes. How you doing? How's everybody? I hope I'm not stepping on RJ's stream. So anyway, Mandy is hotter than the sun. But Marcus, yeah.
Oh, thank you, Fritzy.
Hey.
I did shave today.
So tonight we're taking the opportunity to announce Marcus Killigrew's OnlyFans. So there you go. Please subscribe to that. We'll put the link in the description. Agent O, the old time. I'm seeing a lot of new names. And I hope people don't get upset when they realize that Mandy's family obligations said that she couldn't show up. And I'm just repeating them because I'm not here to trick anybody. I had a stream 2 weeks ago and Ethan Van Skyver didn't show up, and a couple of people got upset with me. You know, I'm sorry. But if you turn on a webcam and send out an invitation, Cooper shows up. So so it all works out. So anyway, I could talk a lot. Marcus, why don't you talk? Give me a break. I've been talking for an hour already.
Talk. That's all I ever do.
Go.
What would you like to know? So
for those of you who don't know, Marcus is an illustrator himself, and Marcus is a stretch goal. How's that? If my comic book Row of Tales hits a stretch goal that I have no idea what it is yet, because I still haven't talked to the printers. I'm still at that fun stage where seeing art and colors and stuff like that. I'm not at the unfun stage, and I'm sure Cooper could agree with me of paying bills and seeing how much it costs to actually print comics. So if I hit a stretch goal of whatever amount, Marcus is going to do a 7-page backup featuring one of my villains.
7. By the way, 7 pages, 7-8 pages, perfect for me. That's about the length of all the comic stories I've done. When I previously published in '95, it was 2 published, not through Diamond, so it doesn't count, but 2 16-page. I have to send you that book, John. 2 16-page, 2 8-pages, 16-page comic, and I have 2 more done. I have like 32 pages done. So my whole thought was to get, when I started this job where I had all this time driving, listening to podcasts, and I would try to learn about crowdfunding. The most successful crowdfundings are CG. So you start with Ethan on down. And artists that Graham Nolan, Andy Smith, these are guys I remember from the mainstream. And I was going to try to figure out how to do crowdstream, kind of like what you're doing now. But my writer, he's too busy, the grandkid. I can't get him into it. I can't do it by myself, I don't have that time. I don't have the business head for that. And it's his characters too, I figured we had pages done, get them re-lettered, maybe when we crowdfund, hire colors, like Billy Tucci said, "Oh, you got it. You can make an omnibus." And I'm like, "Oh, all right, wait, hold on a second." So now I'm just comfortable to kind of just try to get some sort of work, like what you're offering me here, or pinups, because my mental health is a lot better when I'm drawing comics.
Well, Cooper left.
So. I have all these just enough stories to get along with the pros. So I went to school visual arts in the late '80s with Will Eisner, Harvey Kurtzman, Joe Orlando, Erwin Hasen, Kyle Baker went to school at the same time. I knew Kyle a little bit.
Oh, cool.
I didn't know him a lot, but one of his best friends I knew pretty well. And guys like that, they all like, did anybody make comics? And then you're like, no, until you realize, oh yeah, this guy did, that guy did. I knew a guy who did a long run on Archie, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that type of thing.
And what do you do now? Oh,
I work for a company that does. I fix and repair off-campus internet and video.
Oh,
so
okay.
It's all where the kids live off campus. I spent a long time working for 9X. That turned to Bell Atlantic, that turned to Verizon, and then I moved here and worked for AT&T. AT&T's tough to work for.
My dad was a telephone man.
I'm a telephone
man.
T-Buddy,
I'd love to go back to tip and ring, to be honest with you. I love doing that.
My father worked for I don't know how many years for Ma Bell, and then what was it during the Reagan years? They broke up the monopoly, and then he.
You guys got one of the best songs that's ever written, Wichita Lineman.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Wichita Lineman, Glenn Campbell.
Oh yeah, and
that's one of the best songs ever written. So.
My father loved working tip and ring. Spent
years. I do like working tip and ring.
And I'm sure
I did that for a long time.
Cooper, what do you do for a living?
Well, I work in one of the last stateside weave mills left.
Weave mills? You make wigs?
No, not that kind of weave. We're talking cloth.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
That is cool. That is cool. Yeah, that's like old school. You don't think people still make that kind of stuff. That is cool.
Where are you from, Cooper?
Well, I'm from Western North Carolina.
Oh, I'm in Charlotte.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah. My whole thing is covered with Carolina. Okay.
There you go.
Fritz is asking, can you tell us about Will Eisner? Pardon me.
Oh, Will was something else.
Yeah, please do.
First you go into his class, and he treats it like his studio, and you're intimidated by him like in the first year, like especially the first couple semesters. And he looked like he did in all the pictures, except one year he got new teeth. And he smiled a lot more. And he's this old guy, he's this old New York Jewish guy who happened to do comics. I mean, it's just like a lot of guys you would know. He wants a good bagel and a cup of coffee. And
yeah, but it's like learning the Bible from the guy that wrote it, And
there's things I do to this day, storytelling wise, because of him. And he would come in every other week, and he was really nice. He had a ton of patience. He did not give anybody any drawing, like physical, like, okay, the deltoid is off, make the arm longer. He was interested in the storytelling, and like a different type of comic and doing graphic novels.
Yeah.
So he talked a lot about that. And then, but the problem is his class was like 6 hours long, and the kids are not mature enough to sit there and do work in class. Right. Me and my couple of guys I hung out with, we were pretty good about that. You could come and do work, and you'd have to get in line to show him work. And if you liked his, you were like, wow, Will Eisner likes my work. And he was just really nice and really patient with everybody. And it's like everybody's uncle or grandfather. And the other guy who came was Andre LeBlanc, and he drew he was a main ghost artist for Dan Barry and Cy Barry on The Phantom and Mandrake the Magician. And he did the Picture Bible before the Action Bible. They had the first drawing of Picture Bible. And he was from Columbia. And he would tell you, okay, when you draw this, you're putting in too much detail. You got to make it simpler. He told me that one year, and I stopped doing feathering for like a whole year. I just did all like single lines, thick and thin lines. Because everybody's trying to get all that detail in, this is before image. So it wasn't detail, it was getting it right, more or less, not to pick on those.
Yeah.
And, you just have these lessons that you don't remember. And then when you draw, suddenly you're like, oh yeah, Will said that. But But one time, that was way back in the 80s when all we had was VCRs and nobody could program the VCR. And everything was, remember that at Flash 12? I think I'm a little older than you guys. And so we had to do a how-to comic for Will. There was different things. You would do a how-to comic. So, because his thing was PS Magazine, how to clean your rifle, how to change a tire. And so I did how to program your VCR. And Will took that one home because he didn't know how to program his VCR. Could you make a copy for that for me? I got to take that home because I had no idea what to do. And it was just a bunch of fingers, press this button, press that button. And it's just everything you do. You do the comic and you think, what would Jack Kirby do? What would Will Eisner do? We joked that Will Eisner would take 8 panels to tie your shoe because he was that detailed about that stuff. But to this day, if you look at my work when it's finished, it's all full of blacks and spotted blacks and dark. That's because of Will Eisner, because I never think my stuff is ever going to be colored. So I'm trying to pop out the characters. And it's just a really, it was just kind of nice to be with him. We co-edited the Gallery magazine. Like one year I didn't even get in. And, the
I would love
to page story.
I would love to be in a fly on the wall when Will turned in that first page where somebody was completely out of the frame, and had broken the box and had gone.
He did the stuff that they say that Joe Kubert did, and all that storytelling. Will did all that stuff first.
Yeah,
he did everything first, and that's not to put anybody else down.
Right.
That he created kind of language of storytelling, of comic storytelling that we do to this day. Now, what he didn't like, and this is wasn't crazy for, say, Howard Chaykin's work, because the page design and Howard's stuff was more important at the time, American Flag, than the actual storytelling.
Right.
He wanted meat and potatoes storytelling. I never did superheroes for him.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I'm on Will Eisner's side. I love Howard Chaykin. I love
Chaykin too. Chaykin does not like Eisner.
But I'm on Eisner's side, because if you take out the words to a Chaykin book, you cannot follow. You can't tell what's going on. No. It is some of the worst storytelling. And this, again, who am I? I'm nobody. But I take, I send in my scripts to Renzo Rodriguez, my artist, and then he sends me back pages, and I put them and I give them to my wife, who's not into comic books. And there's, keep in mind.
Yeah, I do that too.
And I just asked my wife, what's going on? And she's like, I don't know. There's no words. I'm like, just figure it out. Tell me the story. And she's able to tell me with 90% accuracy of what I'm going for. Now,
Well, John, I'm going to correct you there, sir. When you say you're nobody, you are the customer, and the customer is the reason why these guys even have
I'm talking about nobody as far as comic book creation. You know what I mean? I don't have a comic book out, so I don't think I could correct anybody. But least of all Howard Chaykin. But I'm going to do it anyway. But I would say, let's take Howard Chaykin work and take out the word balloons and give it to a buddy who doesn't read comics. Yeah. Give it to a buddy who does read comics but hasn't read that particular comic. You're going to be lost. Right. Yeah. You're going to be lost. And I know somewhere, because Howard Chaykin watches all my videos. He's going to be mad at me, but you know what I mean. So I'm on the Will Eisner camp. You could take any of those Spirit comics.
Oh yeah.
You could take out the words, and you're gonna miss subtle jokes. You're gonna miss a little bit of like character, but you're gonna get the story. So
well, there's this one sequence I really loved where the Spirit was ambushed, and he jumped through this window, blindly, and he lands like in these boxes down below, being lucky as he always was. Yeah. And he's sitting there like trying to collect himself, and the dog's like licking his cheek, and it was just like,
I remember that.
Rain falling down.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the story, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
and it's just beautiful. It's beautiful storytelling.
I always thought, Marcus, go ahead, Marcus, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I always thought that Kirby, his work was like a movie, a cinema, over the top, explosions, volcanoes, cosmic rays, and rocket ships, and everything like that. And I always looked at Will Eisner. It was like you said before, he's a New York Jewish guy who wanted a coffee and a bagel. Like when I read The Spirit, it's like I'm gonna sit down in a theater, and the curtains are gonna open, and a Will Eisner comic is and it's more theatrical than, say, cinematic.
Yeah.
Well, Will did everything. to this day, I don't want to be inked. I got inked on my first story for Captain Courage, the second story for Captain Courage, excuse me. And I don't like it. To this day, I say, well, that inking wasn't that bad. I hated it because all we did was ink ourselves. We lettered our own books. We did everything like they're doing in crowdfunding today, but it wasn't computer lettering and a hand letter, which mine isn't that good. Mm-hmm. And so you'll have similar stories for the Cubert School guys. Said the same thing, similar things. And they used to cross, teachers used to cross.
So it sounds like you got like a West Side Story thing going on. Do you ever guys have like fights? Yeah.
No, but the funny thing is,
versus the Eisner guys.
It was
in their hands.
It was 19. It was 1984, right? I took a year off after school to kind of after high school to go to school of visual arts, and the decision for visual arts over Cubert was that visual arts is an accredited college. Like you went to college, or Rutgers is an accredited college, right? To this day, Cubert has an accreditation. It's not the same, but at that time, it didn't have any. It just basically started. It was like Graham went like 3 years before. It would have been the second or third class. It would not have been. It really just started. So that was the decision to go to Cubert. I think more Cubert guys kind of got work, although like Phil Jimenez went to SVA and Joe Quesada went to SVA. Though he took illustration. He was at earlier to me. Drew Friedman, some of the great underground cartoonists went there. But so that accreditation got me a pay bump when I started at the phone company, though, so it kind of worked out.
There you go.
Oh, you went to college, you get this bump. You don't have to start at $7 an hour.
Yeah, I'm an electrician, and I got a pay bump because I went to college. It's like, oh, good.
Same thing.
My Greco-Persian history is going to help me on this construction site.
And the guys used to say,
they said it would never come in handy.
Right, yeah.
And we had guys I work with, and they were really nice guys. You got a pay bump for going to art school? What the F was that about? And these are all guys.
I have a doctorate in philosophy. Oh, here you go.
It's all 20. I did all that work 25 minutes north of New York City, Larchmont and New Rochelle. So
there you go.
Is that where you're from originally?
Larchmont, New Rochelle, yeah, Mamaroneck, yeah.
So do I sound New Yorker to you?
Oh yeah, you, Billy. Billy's like one of the guys from home.
New Yorker. Yeah, you.
I hang out with these guys, and if you ever go, some of these guys on Instagram, I don't want to go to cons. I'll be to them. These people in CG are welcoming. I was invited to the drinking stream with Dennis and Andy, and who am I? I just hang out with them.
Yeah.
They gave me a birthday gift. I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah, we're quite
I won't say what.
We're quite pleasant for a bunch of Yahtzees,
Yeah. I keep saying that.
Yeah.
And exactly. And, same thing with Dan Fraga, Billy Tucci. I'll never say a bad word about any of them. I don't care how late their books are. I know that's a big controversy. I'm following it. I have my opinions. I fall for CG.
Yeah.
Way for CG. The comics is hard.
This brings up the topic du jour is promotion versus not promoting and stuff like that. What I already made my I already made my opinion on Twitter. It's funny because it's still getting likes right now. What did I say? I said this is me on Twitter today. I'm never calling it X. I'm sorry, guys, but I try to avoid drama, so I will do a drive-by. I love to promote others. I love comics, and if you're making a comic, I want to talk to you. I've learned so much from talking to others. I've made contacts. I've hired talented people, and I've had so much fun. That's it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Cooper, you've been on my channel. You know what I mean? I don't feel like when I make my comic, you are obligated to promote me. I mean, it would be nice, but you know what I mean? Like, I had you on my channel. I just wanted to talk to you about your comic. You know what I mean? It's,
right.
I had no when I first started talking to people, I had it in the back of my mind, wouldn't it be nice to make a comic book? But then after seeing like RJ when he did Thomas Valiant, I was just like, I could do this. I'll wait till I have 20,000 subscribers. Well, I don't even have 1,000 subscribers, and I'm doing this. I got super enthusiastic. But again, nobody owes me anything,
Well, my philosophy is that the way things really work in the really real world is You promote people that you know,
That's right.
that you're friends with, that you have associations with, that you have some kind of vested interest in. And to expect people who don't know you from Adam, who have their own circles that they're running in up there, the exalted air that they run in, then to expect them to, be obligated to, in some way, shape, or form, push your book is asinine to me. Now, I ran a show for a while where where I promoted a lot of people, call it a buy one back one. I did on Fridays, and the thing I learned was that there really wasn't a lot of movement. Uh, Now, there's a lot of movement, a lot of self promotion of the same strata that I was on, because people were going on each other's shows and they were familiar with each other. But that group
see
at the
that.
top is pretty well sealed up to themselves, and that's just that's the way humanity is. And so to expect them to, with all their responsibilities and all the business that they're conducting up there, some of them have, while I'm freaking out over having like my 85 backers. They're into thousands of backers. Some of them are tens of thousands, and so
Yeah, but we're also talking about the top 1% of comic book talent in the history of the world. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
The fact that Ethan even came on my channel when I had 400 subscribers, to me, I was like,
but
why is this
but
happening?
it's interesting. The magic number for those guys is 100,000.
Yeah.
Core Draft is the first 100,000 book for Andy Smith. You figure First Man, he started 25,000 for the first Man, 55,000 for the second. And everybody said, how is Andy Smith this far behind the other kings? He's on all this, but it makes no sense.
Nah.
And even Core Draft, it was pulling teeth to get it to 100,000. I'm not sure why that is. So it's not. It is what that it is. You're right, but it's not just that. It's something.
Right.
It's something else. And the joke was, you were talking about Renee earlier. Renee really got on the stream. She lit up the streams. She got drunk with them. She did the push-ups. She really is good looking. And she looks good on stream. And Mandy is a similar situation. And people will back that more often. I always told these guys, get your wives to promote the thing. Forget
There
your
you go.
ugly mugs.
There you go. It
and
worked
they
for
start
PPP.
laughing. No, we always don't do that. And even Graham doesn't do over 200,000. Now, if Graham did a Batman character, I think he'd make $500,000. He doesn't want to do that.
Right.
But
what Graham's running is kind of niche,
Well, that's what he wants to do. Yeah, I never met
that's
Graham.
What he wants.
I want to meet him. But it really is true. Now, he on the other hand goes on the big shill shows that don't welcome Ethan anymore because they like him because he's with Chuck and he created Bane. So we were talking. I talk about this with Andy sometimes, and it's just the way it is. It's just the way it is.
Right.
You're not going to get on Comicsgate Kings. That's as simple as that. PTP couldn't get on Comicsgate. What didn't work for Marvel. It's very rare that's that show. If you can get them, one of these guys, you get on Andy's Wednesday show. That's the way you're going to do. But even those shows, the big shows are the guys who are the comic artist YouTubers. That's John, Shane, and particularly Ethan.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that have all the drama that everybody complains about. But I don't pay attention. They can have drama. It's fun watching it. I don't have to participate in it. I'm not worried about it. These guys all worry about
also masters.
I don't worry about any of it. But what's happening now is the Eric July conundrum, where he came when he was first doing a comic. He did not think he was going to make $3 million on his comic. He thought he was going to make 100,000. Now Ethan told him he was going to make a ton of money because it's 9% of your backers, and his backer base is huge because he's been doing this 16 years. He does it for the Blaze. He's been fighting the culture war, for better or for worse. I kind of listened to him before. Now I won't. I don't. He doesn't treat people right. Doesn't mean he can't be successful. He can be successful as he wants. I don't care. He also doesn't put out a great comic.
Yeah. So
that's my biggest problem is if you're going to talk all that smack to Ethan Van Sciver or whoever else, you got to put out a comic book that's equal to Ethan Van Sciver's comic book.
Yeah.
And I know Ethan's late. I know it's a problem. I have not lived his lateness. I got his books early by accident.
Yeah.
And I got to take the dead copy, so I didn't wait, and I wasn't the one being criticized like other fans have been criticized. But that comic does not touch Cyberfrog. Cyberfrog's not perfect, but Isom doesn't, and so you can't really talk about it.
No.
I
And
look at
every time you get criticism, John is going to make a comic, or T-Buddy, you've made a comic, and I'm going to look at this comic, and I'm going to say, well, this works, and this doesn't work, and are you going to get upset at me? Are you going to go on YouTube and try to monetize your haters? No.
Right.
But that's what Eric does for a living. That's how he made his money. And
Well,
it's not working.
Eric is extraordinarily combative.
I don't hate him. I just, that type of YouTubing now, I'm losing
I say that
going
from
up.
experience because he swatted me like a fly back in May, I think it was.
I think I saw that. I read it all. I'm not always involved.
Well, I mean, I don't hold any ill will because he doesn't even know who I am. I mean, for him, it was Tuesday. For me, it was 3 years of work gone just like that. But,
oh no,
he's got a pretty aggressive fan base. And when he points somebody out, they
if his comic was really good and it looked like John B. Buscema drew ice on,
right,
then he could do whatever the heck he wants. His comic is not all that. He thinks it's good. God bless him. And he has maybe by the time 4 or 5 of them come out and they're all one long story, it's all going to work out.
Yeah.
I read the first one. I didn't read the second one.
Well, I mean,
Alpha Core is by Chuck, and that doesn't look all that great either. So
right. Well, but the thing about it is I knew it was going to be a problem because he was going to write it, and he didn't do his dues to write. And people think that you can just pick up writing, but writing is just as involved as artists.
I don't write.
And an artist is.
You're absolutely right, T-Bunny. I don't write. I have a writer.
Well, I mean, the whole thing about anybody can write that was going around has been bandied about early on in CG. It still is in some circles, and that's why a lot of the books just aren't to snuff when it comes to writing wise. And that's why
I went nuts when I got Fiendish and when I got Wraith of God.
Yeah.
Not to be mean to anybody, and I don't know if you know this about me. I try to stay away from drama.
Yeah.
But Fiendish and Wraith of God were the 2 Comicsgate books that blew me away by the writing.
Yeah, Wraith of God's really good.
Wraith of God was good.
This Cordrath book is up there. This is a really good book.
It's funny about Cordrath because the first couple of pages I was like, oh no, and I didn't like it. And I don't want to spoil the ending, but once I got to the ending, I realized what he was going through, and it totally changed the writing.
And I read just recently bought Alien Alamo. I overpaid for it, but I had to get it, and that is really good.
Yeah,
that is very well written.
Really solid.
Alien Alamo.
So and I've read Joe Frankenstein already.
Shadowpunk was the best book I saw next year, bar none.
Okay.
And he's got like the 9-minute movie that goes along with it. If you watch the 9-minute movie,
I've heard of that. Yeah,
gut punch.
I can't back. I feel guilty. I can't back all the books I want to back. Money.
Well, it's not you can't get it currently because he closed it out. So because he's going to move in.
Every time Dave Brink comes on, I feel guilty.
Oh, Dave's awesome. Perfect.
He's so awesome. His book looks good. It looks great.
Are you talking about Dave Brink? Sorry, I'm responding to an email.
Yeah.
I can't back everything.
Dave Brink was just on Wednesday, and oh my God, first off, his book looks amazing.
Oh yeah.
Second off, he's a great guy. And then afterwards, we were talking, and he gave me some pointers, helped me. What a great guy.
Perfect 10 is the best female protagonist in CG.
I backed
bar none. She is.
I backed. I thought I just got confused for a second.
But
emails
early on,
maybe she. Maybe equal with she. I'll say equal with she.
Before all this drama that's happening now, like over the summer, I was thinking there's 3 tiers of CG.
Yeah.
And you have your king tier. Mm-hmm. And that's, we know who they are, Billy and all that.
Yeah.
And then you have your middle tier, and that's like the Joe Sontag, even though he's doing some Mandy, but she is Dale, so that puts her up a little bit, but that's really the middle tier.
Yeah.
And this is not anything to do with quality at all. And then, and a couple other Joe Ball, those guys. And then there's the other tier, and that's where Dave is. That's where John's going to be. The regular tier, the regular guy tier. Where this is where the fear about the Eric July, people are afraid that he's going to ruin crowdfunding because he uses a crowdfunding basis to really do what Marvel and DC does. He's a pre-published book, which is great that he has it all done. They all worked on it ahead of time. They're not in a rush,
right?
As far as we know, and it's all done. And then he gets the month long. He only does like 30 days or 35 days or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Of backing. It's not even backing. It's pre-orders. And then he gives you the book a month later, so you're not waiting for it like everybody else waits for it. But the rest of us need the money to crowdfund to actually do the book.
Exactly.
We can't pay. You're paying John. You're paying Renzo to do this many pages. If it's the whole book, that's good on you. But most of it, everybody else would be like, okay, we're going to get 5 or 10 pages done. We're going to get a cover. We're going to get a variant cover. We're going to do campaign.
Yeah.
And then during that you're collecting the money, and you really can't do any work until you have enough money to do the work, to pay the letter. Yeah. And if it's all us, like it's all me, I'm not getting paid. The big guys pay their own pay rates.
Job, and my wife works. I bought a cheap house, so I could afford
with a very big basement. Yeah,
I could afford to do one book. You know what I mean? And,
and
if one book will be coming out, and one book will be the best goddamn book.
Right.
And if issue number 2 is on you guys, you know what I mean? So
the idea of the crowdfund is you have an idea for a board game. Like my son plays all the board games, right? Mm-hmm. He knew that board game guy. He watches that guy almost every day.
Tom Vassell,
if he has an idea for a board game and he has no money, he has to crowdfund that board
is game. The Ethan Van Sciver of board games.
Oh yeah, he was telling me how big that guy was.
He is huge. He,
he was telling me.
Who am I? Either I'm charming, which I'd like to think, or I'm lucky, which is probably the case.
Yeah, you get some heavy duties, some heavy hitters.
Which is why I was quiet when you guys were talking about Eric July, because I may be an ass, but I'm a loyal ass.
I agree with Chris.
When I had, so I'm not going to say anything bad, because believe it or not, any women in the audience, I know Lacey's in the audience, men become friends like this.
Yeah.
And I said this before. After an hour conversation with me, we're friends. Unfortunately, you guys live too far away, but that's the way the internet works, So I put this comment up, and I realized I didn't read it. It might have something dirty in it.
Go ahead.
So far, the crowdfunded books that I've King Cryptid, good comic. Joe Frankenstein, excellent. My only problem with Joe Frankenstein is I want 20 more issues tomorrow. Jupiter and Baron. Oh, I don't know Jupiter. Is anybody?
I've seen it.
Yeah, it's kind of a throwback comic. But
that sounds good.
It's a Kirby style comic.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Kirby, definitely.
And Private American, awesome. Yeah. Mike Barrett. Can you?
Yeah, that was a great book.
I'm on a first name basis with Mike Barrett.
Yeah,
I'm on a budget. I need to be select. I totally get you.
Totally understand.
I totally get you. Oh, Nicholas here wants us to start all over. Okay, guys, how you doing? This is John. Welcome to John's Long Box. This is.
There you go.
This guy down here, this handsome fellow is Mandy Summers, and this is Nick X. How you doing, Nick?
Oh, it's Nick. What's up, dude?
Hey, welcome, Nick. Nice to meet you.
I'd like to say something about the comment that Marcus made about the tiers.
Oh, okay. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a quick comment. Welcome to the stream, Nick. But he's talking about that last tier, the Dave Brinks and people like that. I think that's where I see the most amazing stuff. And it has to do with the fact that most of these guys have never been in the mainstream, never been in that system. And so they're making stuff that are just genuinely out of their heart, out of their, they're not doing at that tier. They're not really doing it for the money, because there's not really enough money for that. And so they're really doing it for the love. And you see some projects coming out from that particular tier.
Well, if I thought I was going to get rich making this comic book, then hit me right now.
Well, I mean, I just think that's where the
cheap.
Yeah, there you go. But I really think that's where the really most amazing stuff I see that's coming out, and not everybody knows. I mean, like Stump. There's 2 books of Stump, and I tell you what, that's a great protagonist. He's an amazing character, and it's an amazing world that Nathan Rosario has built. And
what comic
that
is this
book,
you're talking about? Cooper?
Stump. It's called Stump. Yeah. It's about a guy who's
send me a link. You see, I can't
right.
claim to know all of these comics, and sometimes people at the risk.
Well,
I'll introduce Nick in a second. At the risk of sounding
he's
arrogant,
just
so
like
many
a blue
people
collar
say it's gonna come
guy,
on my
and his
channel, and I don't know
solution to
who they
everything
are.
is to punch it. So yeah.
So this is right below me. This wonderful fellow is Nick Axe, and it's funny because I never saw you before, and from our emails, I expected like this white-haired, bearded guy. I don't know. I guess because I met you through RJ, so I
You just assumed.
Yeah, I pictured this esoteric scholar, holding with like a vellum roll around your arm or something. Hello, John.
Yeah, no, hi, thanks for having me on, guys. This is great. Yeah, no, the
Yeah,
conversation.
RJ probably looks like Gandalf. So
yeah, no doubt.
Do you know what RJ looks like?
No. We've had a couple of.
I think RJ probably looks like Gandalf. I bet.
We've had a couple of like chats just like this. I share my camera. RJ never shares anything. The guy is seriously like a ninja or a spy or ninja spy, really. Yeah.
I made mock-up covers.
I think it's professor at like an liberal institution, which you have to be very on the down low for that.
Yeah, fair enough.
I made mock-up covers, and I always put Ted Kaczynski.
There you go.
That's your next comic.
He does have a little Ted Kaczynski energy. Yeah, RJ on the island Come on.
Really? Yeah.
A little bit. Except he's got that kind of vocabulary too. So honestly,
for those of you who don't know, Nick, you did the covers and some of the art for RJ's comic, Crom the Destroyer.
Yeah, so far so good. I mean, like right now, it seems like I'm his cover artist of choice. I'd like to keep that going. Yeah, and
you don't do interiors?
Actually, I have been now doing interiors for RJ as well. So, like in a previous life, I owned an animation studio. So when I was about 17, 18 years old, I started an animation studio. I was able to raise about $250,000 to get that started. And I did a half-hour Christmas special for like a couple of Canadian broadcasters and so on, and built the studio up to about 26 animators. And then I ran that for about 8 years, and I brought, like, it was starting to grow and grow and grow. And I'm like, I'm an artist. Like, the whole starting a studio thing was completely image was on the brain. And it was like, oh, I got to start myself a studio. That's what I got to do. Little did I know that, there was a business side to it. I mean, I was so young and, and so it got to a certain size where I'm like, I need help. There's only so much that I can do, the business side, all that. And so it just turned out that I bring in this investor, and I get about 2 or 3 months later, I get ousted. Right.
Oh no.
It was crushing because the whole thing was my identity. It was like, I didn't even know how to recover from that. And so I ended up just kind of falling into like any kind of work that would come my way.
You got Project Veritas, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah, completely. Right. Oh God. And so I just fell into like marketing and design and messaging. And I got into this like really weird sort of crowd of these, I don't know exactly what you want to call them, like dark wizards, I guess. I don't know. Like these are people who really looked into like the psyche, how to get people to buy things that they don't want or don't need. How to use language, how to use imagery, how to like all this stuff on a really high corporate level. And I started doing stuff for like big oil and gas companies. I started doing, managing the perception of the public for publicly traded companies, like stuff like that. And
you learned dark arts then.
I learned way too much, tons. Like, you don't want to know some of the conversations that go on.
Trying to make an animated studio, and now,
I was lost at sea.
Elevator safety.
Oh, dude, I was lost at sea. Like really, some of the things that I saw and so on, and I just wondered like, what dark world have I walked into, kind of thing. And it was really soul sucking. I mean, the pay was ridiculous, right? Like they pay way too much money for that stuff, and the work was very, very I guess because of my animation training, I went to
Mhm.
Sheridan College and for classical hand drawn animation.
Mhm.
A lot of this marketing stuff and the design stuff was very easy. It came very easily because
Yeah.
it was basically storytelling.
Mhm.
I mean, that's what marketing and messaging and advertising is. It's all storytelling. And so, but I always had this eye to like wanting to do comics. So on the side, I would draw. My friends were like, "Oh, you need to really push it." The problem was that while I was at the animation studio, I was the chief creative officer, so I wasn't doing a lot of the drawing.
Right.
So when I got ousted,
Hmm.
I just sort of fell into this marketing, messaging. I started doing everything from business plans, video. Like it was insane how much stuff that I was doing and how many skills I've learned. And I just had to walk away. At a certain point, I just got tired of it. I moved out east. I'm on
Mhm.
Cape Breton Island in Canada here.
There you go.
And I had to escape. And it was just basically like, I'm gonna go
Hey,
into-
great pay, but you have to sign with your blood. So,
Right.
there you go.
So I just decided like I'm going to go into semi-retirement and I'm going to like really pursue this comics, like the first love. I mean, even
Awesome.
before animation. And that's when I fell into RJ,
Mhm.
saw what he was posting. I'm like, this is exactly the opposite message of what I had learned in the dark arts of
Well,
like marketing and
RJ
messaging.
has like the strange thing about RJ that makes him unique is he knows the whys.
Mm.
I mean, a lot of people know that something's wrong.
Oh, don't
and
let
they
him fool you. He's not
and they can
smart. He's
put the-
making all that up.
Yeah,
He's
but
not
he's right.
listening, is he?
He's always right. So if he's making
RJ,
it
you're not
up,
the audience, are
he's
you?
right. Yeah, he's dead on.
Well, that was the thing. I would listen
like
to
like
I
a
would listen to his
bisexual
videos.
lighting. I did not know about bisexual lighting
Oh,
until
yeah.
he brought it up, and then now I see it everywhere.
Yeah,
I see it everywhere.
It's not just in color, it's in all medium, like
Right.
whether that's illustration, whether that's writing, prose, whether that's they have various tip of the hat kind of
Yeah.
signals and so on. They refer to it like they're always talking about how the right or whatever that means is always using dog whistles and stuff, and it's like, yeah, you're projecting again. That's exactly what you guys do.
That's what you guys are doing
Like,
every day.
Stop it. Like, just we're tired. It's really getting tired,
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was listening to RJ's stuff and I'm just
Mhm.
like, this guy's making sense. This is exactly what I'm looking for. And I just reached out email and he responded. He saw my work and the rest is history. And he got me to do one cover and then it was the next. And he said, oh, this is great. Can you do pinups? I did pinups. And then he says, hey, I got this interior for Chrome. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I love Conan. I love John Buscema. Are you kidding me? And he's like, yeah, if you want it, it's yours. I'm like, I'm all in. Forget it. I'm done. So
There you go.
So the link to this whole thing is if this was Sesame Street, we have to find one of these things is not like the other. And Cooper, that's you. Because Marcus, he's a
One of
stretch
these
goal.
things is not like the other.
Yeah, and Nick, I hired Nick to do basically everything for my comic. That's not actual Renzo drawing. So I don't even know what I don't know. I got into this basically on love and enthusiasm, and right around now, reality is starting to hit me with hammers that I need. Like, I didn't know pre-press was a step. And I'm like, what do you mean pre-press? Renzo said to me art, and then we're just gonna print it. You know what I mean? Like, that's how naive I was. And then I was talking to RJ, and RJ mentioned Nick. And again, this goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning. That this group, I met Marcus through making silly little videos about comic books, childish toys, really. And now Marcus and I, are talking every day. I met Nick. I met Cooper. You know what I mean? It's just so much fun. If this is a hate group, geez, I couldn't even imagine. This is like that. I'm getting a little emotional here.
They're projecting again whenever they say that hate group is them. Yeah.
You just, even the big guys, I hang out. I can count Andy Smith and Dennis Turner as good friends of mine at this point. I've hung out and had dinner with Billy Tucci, Dan Fraga, and a couple, even Rini. Now, whether Rini remembers, because so many people talk to Rini, but I talked to her one-on-one. In fact, I know the teachers that she had at SCAD, they give her a hard time for being a CG, because I know them from my life up in New York years ago, and I say hello to them all the time every year I was gone. And that's how great CG is. I'm sure if I met Ethan or Graham, and these are the big guys, I know the little guys will be good guys. Who's bad? Who gets treated badly? I don't know. I know that there's people who feel that way. Hasn't been my experience, you know.
I know the
I don't wait.
I'm sorry. I know the two top dogs, Eric and Ethan. Like I joked before, this is kind of like West Side Story. I don't think they're really mad at each other. I think these are two master people at media that are drama farming, and now I'm talking about them. You know what I mean? Like the Sharks over here, the Jets over here. You know what I mean? I don't
It's
even
like
know.
the Solomon. It's like Solomon, the mother with the baby.
Right.
It's like Solomon, the mother and the
Well,
baby, right?
They're master manipulators.
What you or I would worry about, oh, did I insult my brother yesterday on the phone? My brother, by the way, is basically basically Antifa.
Oh.
He's only a year younger than me, but that's what he talks like.
Really?
Van Jones, you know, like complete MSNBC. I have to have a therapy session with my father to get over that. Do I ever want to call him again? And you worry about this, but what Eric and Ethan do is like, how can I make a little money out of this?
Right.
How can I get some more smart chats? And Eric has made a whole career and made all those millions of dollars before the comics that he doesn't have to crowdfund. In fact, he doesn't. You know, he can pay, and he has warehouses, and God bless him. And Ethan does the same thing. And everybody goes, "Oh, the drama," and they all worry. But like I'm on the chat and all that, and they all worry. They get upset about the drama because they only talk about the comics. But one doesn't. You can watch an hour of that. It's kind of entertaining. But I'm old. You know, I'm 58 years old. Well, I care what these guys do. You know, so it's kind of funny. That's all.
Yeah.
It depends. Is it going to keep me from buying their comics? No, because if they have a good comic, I'm going to buy their comics. I have my opinions on the comics. You know, what did I pay? $10. I pay $10 for Cyberpunk Blood Honey. You know, dinged and dented. I don't care about it. It doesn't have to be CGC graded for me. And then I got Wreck Planet because I paid a little extra for it. I backed it on the one who was selling all those hats. And his worker sent it to me by accident. I was like one of the first people to get Wreck Planet. So how mad am I? Worked out great. They're good comics. Wrecked is better than Blood Honey. And it's a little too much like The Walking Dead, the human part. But you can see how excited he is by The Walking Dead and how influenced he is by Robert Kirkman. So this is how it goes. It's a good comic. Is it better than I Sub? Yes. That's how
Nick,
it goes.
we'd have to schedule a one-on-one, but you're the only one I haven't really talked to before. What comics did you grow up reading? Because I'm trying to figure out your age. You could be anywhere from 21 to 50. I have no idea.
He's ageless. He has always existed.
Exactly. Yeah, I do not age. Age. What is this age you speak of?
What is this age you speak?
That's a good attitude.
No, I'm 48.
A girl offered. I'm sorry.
48.
Okay. A girl offered me a seat on the subway the other day. I was like, "Oh my god, do I really look that old?"
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Some of the comics that I collected. I mean, I think the very first comic was TMNT, and it was like, you know, the original Eastman and Laird stuff. Buddy of mine, it was at high school, grade 9. He had it. I was like, literally, what the fuck is this? And I hadn't really seen a book before. And the funny thing was, it took probably about a month or two to realize that people draw this. You know what I mean? Like there was this thing where it's like, at first it's this product, and then all of a sudden you realize, hey, wait, people actually draw this thing. And I went over to my buddy's house, and then that's when he showed me Uncanny X-Men, Jim Lee. What was it, 281 or 2? I can't remember which issue. It was the one where they're all standing on the stage. It's a dramatis persona, and they've got like all the characters, and they're all chained up and shackled up and everything, and they're all just standing like kind of like, I think like in a courtroom or a stage or something like that. It was a Jim Lee issue, and I just was like blown away by that, like completely floored.
Believe it or not, I just read my first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comic yesterday. I was like, I told the story, but I was like irrationally outraged when that comic came out. I remember holding it in my hands going, they're making fun of comic books. Comic books are serious. And this is making fun of Daredevil. Ah! And as I like to refer to that was my $180,000 mistake because I put it back on the shelf and never looked at it again.
Oh no!
He had a stack of them. Larry from the Pulp. He had a stack of Teenage Mutant. I could have bought them.
Wow.
Yeah. But that was it, and then it was from there. It just sort of I just started seeking them out, and then I was there for the whole. Well, that was my first comics that I saw, but I wasn't really collecting. It wasn't until I moved out west and I met this other guy, Dean, and he was the guy that showed me everything. Like he brought me into a comic. I didn't know a comic shop existed. I didn't know these things existed. He brought me into a comic shop. He was a couple of years older than I was. He bought me my first book. It was that John Byrne Superman issue. This is your first Superman.
Not bad.
That was so he bought me that. And then from there I was just introduced to all sorts of different things. And then I was the right age, and I was around for the Image guys.
Yep.
Right. And I there was a brief moment where I liked Todd McFarlane. It wasn't for very long. Todd sort of fell off the map for me. I think at first I was really impressed with his art, and then all of a sudden I could kind of see the wizard behind the curtain kind of thing. I don't know. There was just something that wasn't really working for me for some reason. And then Jim Lee was really the guy that I kind of glommed onto. And then when J. Scott Campbell came out, and then Joe Mad on Battle Chasers. I mean, I saw some of his stuff on Uncanny, and I thought it was interesting, and I liked it. I digged it. But it wasn't until Battle Chasers where I was like, okay, this guy is killing it. And then there was a time there when I just didn't care. I didn't really care about what any of the Image guys were doing. Nothing was interesting, and you just start going.
Image to 2000. I was not a fan of the Image stuff. I thought it was all flash and no substance.
No substance. Yeah. And so at a certain point,
I unfortunately didn't speak up. I just was like, I didn't want to say the Emperor had no clothes.
At a certain, the thing was that
thing was buck naked, man. It was buck naked.
Jim Lee was incredible on Uncanny. If you look at the way
he was great.
If you look at the way he spots blacks in Uncanny, there's actually I would say the first two issues when Claremont went on Wildcats.
So you guys are going to have insights that I probably wouldn't notice.
When Claremont was writing the Huntsman on Wildcats, it was like a 3-issue kind of thing, and I could tell that Jim was sort of reaching back to the old Uncanny days, because the way he was spotting blacks on those pages was so reminiscent of what he was doing on Uncanny. And then when he moved into X-Men, the title X-Men, that's when the wheels started coming off.
Yeah.
Because he was just doing too much. He did that 150 card set, that the collector's card set.
I remember that set, yeah.
At the same time he was doing the books. At the same time he started doing stuff for Wildcats on the side, because he had to finish up his book on Marvel. It was just and then when he did the Wildcats stuff, he kind of stopped spotting blacks the same. Sorry if I'm getting too far into the weeds and this stuff, but he stopped spotting blacks. It was really heavy hatching, and it just became really busy. And
probably what Marcus was saying before you got here was he was told he was putting in too much detail. Do you think this was, Marcus, does this tie into what you were saying?
I wouldn't call it detail. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I know what you're saying. It's the hatching that made no sense across the top that they all adopted. It's a Scott Williams style inking as opposed to the R.T. Bear style. So when he was getting
unnecessary lines on their faces, I didn't understand it.
Yeah, they all started doing it.
Lines.
What do you call them, Cooper?
I call them Liedfield lines.
Linefield line. Yeah.
I had it when I graduated in '89. My friend became one of those Romita Raiders, and when Rob and Todd came and started doing the books, they're hired by those editors to do something else. And Marvel didn't like these guys at all. That New Mutants annual was heavily redrawn by the Romita Raiders. He worked on that. And they'd be laughing at these guys. They're like, how can they be popular? This is impossible. John Byrne would come in and look at a comic farm thing. When did I draw this? I didn't do that. It's a goof. And then when they started doing Youngblood, and they leaked all that stuff out because they weren't that careful. They would put that on the doors, making fun of it because it was a complete ripoff of the New Mutants. They couldn't believe it. And then they leveraged it all out for Image, and it exploded. And I'm sitting here not quite ready to get in the comics, and I'm trying to draw like John Buscema and John Romita, and then, that Jack Kirby. And that's now, after all of a sudden, it's a year after school, 2 years after school, and that's old-fashioned. That's done. For a long time, I just blame them for not being able to get in the comics. By the 90s came and forget about it. I stopped showing work. I said, look, I'm going to do my own thing. I ate something and I met a writer, and we started doing our own thing. It's like the same decision Tucci made. Not as popular, but it's the same thing. And I had no use for it. I blamed them for a long time, but I started teaching artwork to kids. And the 13 and 14-year-old kids just loved this stuff. Yeah. They loved it. They couldn't get enough of it. This is the coolest thing ever. It'd be like 3 words in a whole comic.
Well, Annie Ishikawa changed the whole industry.
Who am I to say,
Well, Annie Ishikawa changed the whole industry.
I'm sorry, Cooper.
It really did.
Yeah, and that's like Annie Ishikawa changed the whole industry. I mean, there's before her and then there's after her.
I look at Image Comics and it's like, oh, great. All it did was make Marvel less good and more expensive.
The Marvel had no artists left after that.
Yeah, Marvel had
left.
Do you remember that?
They weren't paying attention to the editors or writers, and they did whatever they wanted.
And the price went up. And I'm not a big fan of the
commodity market.
You know what I mean? So I was happy with the flat colors and bad paper and cheap comics. And now I'm paying. Comics went up. I remember when from 30 cents to 35 cents. There was a big editorial by Stan Lee about how he's so sorry, but the price of paper is going up. And then it seemed like from 1997 to 2005, it seemed like the nickel increments, forget about that. It seemed like every 6 months it was going up like 50 cents a dollar. You know what I mean? It's like to the point where I remember bringing comics to the comic guy didn't even know the price anymore, and they were making the price really small. I guess they were embarrassed or whatever, but buying crap like Force Works. Do you remember that comic from Marvel?
I remember that comic.
Yeah. They had the lines on the
animals
faces,
were running the
shadows on both sides of the face.
But what happened then was Marvel decided, DC too, that they were never going to let the artist have the rules again. So the Marvel method went away. The Marvel method that Stan Lee worked with Jack Kirby and John Romita and Gene Colan. I had Gene Colan in school. He loved the Marvel method because he could tell the movie. He could tell the story. Although he takes too much time at the end and the middle, and at the end they have all these little panels to finish the book because of the pacing. Gil Kane was bad at the pacing. But they told all the stories that the artists were in charge. Right after Image left, the writers are in charge, and you got Bendis and you got Grant Morrison, where they're writing and they're setting and all up. Even today, where people work with full script, where the writer's telling you the shots, not the camera shots, not the artist, and the artist is just artist robots. And it's not till they get the crowdfunding they get to do what they want. Again, hopefully,
as a writer,
it's a writer's medium. That's why we have this issue. And not that the writers are bad, but it's just they don't want to have the stars. And then all the writers left to do Substack. And now they have Heather Outwoods,
Well, the artists took over, the writers took over, and they started switching out artists all the time. And so there's nobody would be
the writers. It's a writer's medium now. It was an artist medium.
And the writers was horrible.
Stan made it an artist medium. DC took that on. Previously at DC, the 50s and 60s, the editors wrote all the stories. Came up with all the plots and the covers, and then they wrote all the stories. All those Kirk Supermans and Batmans. They made all that up.
Bendis is patient zero for the
for a lot of it. Yeah.
So I don't know what's going to happen with the mainstream. It's not going to go back to the artists. They're not capable of doing it.
No.
So Marcus, you
Nick's capable of doing it from the way you talk. I might be.
Yeah, Nick can do
Well,
anything.
by the way, John, I treat every script like a plot. I don't pay attention to anything you write. Just to...
There you go.
Nick, do you write also?
I do actually. Yeah. And that's just a product of working at the studio, being responsible for a bunch of other creatives, having clients that you sort of have to work with, and then eventually it just gets to a point where you're I hate to put it this way, but like you're one of the people in the room that sounds like they know what they're talking about. And so more and more, they just start to lean on you. They start to ask questions, and then you find yourself in the script writing, and all that. So it got to a point where I was writing. I wrote a short film for a PSA at one point. Wrote a spec script for a small production company in Calgary. And then for quite a while, I had a writing partner where we were writing a lot of fantasy stuff that never really got released, but a lot of fantasy like novels and things like that. But yeah, the writing thing for me is like, yeah, the writers took over. I get it. Marvel was butthurt, DC was butthurt. The artists really were the commodity. They were the gold in the room, and
But like
that went
Marcus
away.
said, the writers left for Substack. You know what I mean? So
Well, now what? Yeah, and here's the thing about like a lot of the writers. Honestly, I wasn't really all that excited about what was being written anyway. So even though they traded over to these writers and they thought that these writers were going to deliver them, I didn't get that sense at all.
I remember getting excited when Bendis took over because I was a big fan of Powers.
I remember Powers.
Powers was a great comic. It was a lot of fun. I couldn't wait. I was excited about it, and Bendis did some other creative, creator-owned stuff, which is excellent. Credit where credit is due. But when Bendis is writing other people's characters,
yeah,
I feel like I don't know. Does he want to be shocking? Does he want to be cool or whatever? Because like Spider-Man doesn't belong in the Avengers. I'm sorry, everybody. Spider-Man's always been a loner. Like to me, it's always been like
Bendis is like the next door neighbor's kid who comes over and when playing with your toys, he breaks everything.
Right, and then goes, "You got to get new one."
You go to his house, and all his toys are pristine. But he comes over and he breaks yours.
Like
so
Luke Cage, like Luke. Why were they the new Avengers and the Avengers when the Defender's name wasn't being used? Even the TV show used the name like it just like it made no sense. I don't know. I still got mad when they had Ghost Rider and Hulk and Wolverine as the Fantastic Four. Like,
that was a Walt Simonson thing as a fill-in. So
yeah,
that wasn't exactly supposed to be. That's 4 issues fill-in. That was so that he could get ahead on the art. And he asked Art Adams, "Hey, could you do me a favor?" And they said, "Sure." And so he drafted what would be the crazy thing to do. So that's what he did. It wasn't like a permanent thing.
Yeah.
We got Art Adams, 4 issues of Art Adams out of it, so I can't get too angry.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you look at it from the artistic point of view, that's a highlight.
Well, Walt's got game, so I mean, Walt's got some heavy duty game when it comes to writing. That Thor run is incredible.
That's one of the best comic book runs of all time.
Yeah, and his wife ain't no slouch either. That's a hell of a couple.
Let's play a little game.
The Power Pack was really good.
Power Pack is incredible. That's my favorite book of all time.
So here we go.
I know June Brigman pretty well. Very quiet. I know her husband better.
Yeah.
They're anti-CG, but they don't know what I do. So.
Let's hear your top 3 favorite runs. So who wants to start? Who wants to start? I mean, I'll start while you guys are thinking. But I will say the John Byrne Fantastic Four is one of my favorite runs. The John Byrne, Chris Claremont X-Men, and the Walt Simonson Thor. I could say without fear of contradiction or changing my mind that those are my top 3 favorite comic book runs. So I gave you guys enough time. Who wants to go next? Top 3 favorite runs.
I'll start. The Byrne Claremont X-Men. I bought those off of the thing. There's a magic.
Yep.
I would say
probably the
lead did go first. The lead did go Spider-Man.
Okay.
You could even say the least Spider-Man until I left the book, just with both artists. Then Lee Kirby Fantastic Four,
Yeah, that would
particularly
be number
after
4. That would be number 4.
after when Joseph had started inking it full time. I mean, until about issue 85 when Kirby kind of gave up, he was going to go to DC. I mean, just everything is in there, and then the Lee Kirby Thors doesn't get as big a. It's a little underrated because of Vince Color inking, but if you reread that, I mean, that's unbelievable. And the only thing that's close to that has to be the Simonson Thor. I mean, and there's the Miller Daredevil.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, the Miller Daredevil, I reread that a couple of times. That's
I
brilliant.
think if we went to 10, there would be a lot of overlap. Cooper.
I mean, I like artistically. There's a ton of things for me. I mean, because but if you wanted to do both, that's it. I mean, you could go and say a lot of different things, but that's about it. I mean, the Spider-Man book, all the Marvels in the '60s took a couple of years to get going. Thor was basically Superman, and it took him years to get going.
The first
and
10
the
issues
Avengers,
of Fantastic Four aren't really.
Yeah, and the Fantastic Four, the early issues are fun, but they're nowhere near as powerful as the later issues, the middle issues,
and
the 50s.
I will even say
Doom.
the first 20 issues of the Avengers weren't even that good.
But
the
the Lee Ditko Spider-Man started out great from the beginning.
Yep.
Issue 1.
Absolutely.
It didn't have any ramping up. It didn't have to understand what they were doing because they didn't really know what they had.
Same with
Lee didn't know what he had and then he started getting some other artists so that Kirby could actually concentrate. And then
Strange
the art exploded.
Too, if you ask me.
Which is that?
Doctor Strange, the lead.
Oh, Doctor Strange is brilliant.
Yeah. Cooper, what do you got? What's your top 3 favorite?
Peter David run on Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, that's good.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
That's a good one.
And Nocenti Power Pack, particularly around the Mutant Massacre. Everybody was on the top game around the Mutant Massacre.
Yeah. Power Pack is a run people don't really talk about. That's a good comic book to pick. That shows
well, it's a perfect mix of kids and superpowers. And I mean they really bickered like siblings. I was as an orphan, I really particularly gravitated that book. And Buscema and Ross's Marvels. So.
Oh, okay, that was a good one.
Yeah, Marvels is great.
Buscema and Ross's Marvels changed my life. So,
what about you, Nick? What's your top 3?
I think it's so difficult because
I know it's hard to pick your top 3. That's why I just went with my gut.
Because you like so many different things for so many different reasons. One of them for sure is the run that Alan Davis did on Excalibur, and I mean not when Claremont was writing. No. I actually like when Alan was writing better. Yeah. His characterization was just so much. I don't know. There was something more that was really going on with the character. Yeah, like the characters were more real for me.
A little bit more purple cozy and all over the place.
Yeah, exactly. Like Claremont, it just felt like I mean, his characterization's fine. I don't want to throw him under the bus or anything like that.
No. We're talking top tier.
Yeah, when Alan was there and when he's drawing as well as writing these characters, I don't know. There was something there, something magical for me there.
Yeah.
I would say, I love when a writer is the artist. Like, yeah. It's almost like they could just pull it like Dumbledore when he's pulling the memories out right onto the page. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna get slammed for this one.
Oh, good. Let's hear it.
I don't even want to say it. But before I say the title, I'm going to defend myself.
Okay.
I am pre-punching.
Yeah, exactly. So the reason why I like this book is because it's unapologetic. It is exactly what it is. It doesn't try to be anything else. It is within the genre and within the parameters, very solidly conceived, very solidly executed, and a whole lot of fun. It isn't anything serious. It knows what it is. Danger Girl.
Oh, I love Danger Girl.
Okay, yeah, people like that.
There's nothing wrong
That's
with
great
Cheesecake.
artwork on that.
It was just a lot
It's
of
exactly what it
fun.
promises to be.
Yeah, and all the callbacks and all the references and everything else. It worked for its time, and it was just a really entertaining and fun read. I actually have it in the John, and so I pulled that out and I
criticized
flipped through
the
it.
art. That's J. Scott Campbell at the top of his game. The
Yeah,
coloring is awesome, and the stories were real stories. What else do you want?
The stories were they were solid, and they had, for me, there's a lot of complaint about when movies start to encroach in on comic making. Like
Right.
a lot of people are like really against the idea of like, okay, this is a comic book, medium, and movies have its place and comics have, and I get that. But at the same time, there's no one is going to tell me that my listening to Bach Concerto for the 800,000th time doesn't influence what I'm drawing.
Yeah.
Okay. The pages that I draw for RJ, usually I have a concerto playing, and there's very specific ones from very specific, like the Hungarian Philharmonic, like so on, right? So I'm
Any
Wagner. When I pull these
it is
things
barbarians.
in, they like these other mediums are going to touch me in a way that are going to find their way in the art. That includes film.
Yeah.
Right.
So when I look at Danger Girl, I look at Danger Girl in a way where, yeah, I could tell Campbell was very influenced by film, obviously, and his storytelling is more filmic than it is comic.
And it's also unabashed. It was a love letter to James Bond. It was a love letter to big spy thrillers.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones.
I wouldn't even put it past him that was his movie.
I agree with that.
Yeah. So
and pinup girls
and
pinup girls. Yeah.
But for me, like, I understand the purist. Don't get me wrong. I think that there's
I don't believe in guilty pleasure. Something's good, you know what I mean? You like it,
It's just a pleasure.
I'm a guy that collects. I'm collecting Femforce. It's what Danger Girl wishes it could. Femforce wishes it could be Danger Girl. But I like it. It's Cheesecake Girl, superheroes beating the crap out of people in spandex.
Yeah. For sure.
Boobs. Lots of boobs. Yeah.
They could do that book forever.
Yeah. I didn't realize there's 220 issues or so. Bill Black. I'd love to have Bill Black on my channel. Talk to him.
You should get him on. He's still doing
I have a honorable mission.
Yeah, I'll reach out to him. If anybody in the audience or anybody knows his contact information, let's talk. I had a couple of guys that worked with him. Now my mind is blanking. But there you go. These are some great comics. At the risk of sounding negative, what was one of your worst comics that just you couldn't stand? And I'm talking like Fantastic Four, something that you always got, and then you just collected it because you always, there's comics that just suck that you never touched. I'm not talking about that, but like beloved, like comics, that I was like, oh man, I'm just suffering through this. I will say
Secret Wars 1,
Secret Wars 2. You didn't like the first Secret Wars?
Oh, people love the first
one.
Secret Wars.
I love the first
Secret Wars.
I liked it. I thought it was a good, fun romp. You know what I mean? To me, that was like when it came out. I'm trying to think of how old I was. I think I was in my late teens. But when Secret Wars came out, it took me back to when I was a little kid playing with my action figures, because that's what it was. Sitting at my table, Hulk is bashing Captain America. There's no freaking story. Just some godlike being, blah 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 blah. And then I pick up this toy, and this one survived. That's what it took me back to. So,
Spider-Man beating Titania is the best Spider-Man scene of all time.
Spider-Man beating the entire X-Men. I love rubbing that in my X-Men fans.
I think
Spider-Man beat the whole X-Men.
He was scary. That's the first time I thought of him as scary. But he is scary as hell.
But I will say Secret Wars 2 was the first time. I didn't know the term at the time, but that was hate reading. I read that every month.
That was bad.
Talk about how bad it was.
It was bad. Especially since they based the Beyonder on David Hasselhoff. So
Yeah.
obviously,
The most powerful being in all creation has a mullet. I
a
promise you
curly
guys,
mullet.
there
A
will be no
curly
mullets
mullet.
in my comic.
Well, that's okay. Thor had a boob window about this time anyway, so there you go.
Oh, jeez.
Marcus, Nick, you guys get
I
any-
think the runs before the run of Thor, after Roy Thomas left and finished his operatic saga, Wagner saga.
My God, did I love that? Like Keith
And,
Pollard art.
and
Oh my God.
right. Keith Pollard. And then right when that was finished, after 300, Pollard was still on it. And then Thor was aimless, completely aimless.
For almost 100 issues.
Almost all fillers just until Walt Simonson took over.
Yeah.
And all the big books had that malaise before the big guys. Before Byrne and Stern and Burns Captain America, which is brilliant. Captain America was going nowhere. Well, Captain America goes nowhere a lot, actually, because they don't understand Captain America. Even back then, they didn't understand Captain America.
Captain America.
The only book that had good run of stories before Miller took over the writing was Shooter and Gil Kane did a short run on Daredevil that was really set up the Miller stuff. But mostly before Byrne took over, it was all fill-in issues and a weird Bill Sienkiewicz Jostin. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't like really natural looking.
Yeah,
Fantastic Four.
You're right. The Fantastic Four had a real remember that creature that was like bleeding black radiation?
Yeah, exactly. And so they all had that.
And they went into a city under the ice of Vikings.
Then the other runs that we forgot about, Bob Layton, David McElhinney, Bob Layton, Iron Man. That just redid Iron Man, and it's the whole movie just set up on all those books. Because previously Iron Man was fine comic by George Tuska. George Tuska did a lot of hate. I don't hate Tuska, but it was certainly in a rut before then.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
They were just putting out Iron Man comics.
This was like 1978 around, right? Maybe
1979. Yeah.
Yeah.
John Romita Jr. laid it out, and Bob Layton finished it, and he also plotted it. McElhinney wrote it, and I know Bob became kind of insufferable later, the Valiant years and stuff. But he did a lot of great work on Iron Man. And other comics as well.
The Tom DeFalco, as much as I like Ron Frenz, but the Tom DeFalco Fantastic Four is unbearable.
Well, I think Paul Ryan did that. Ron Frenz did his Thor.
Oh, around Fantastic Four 300, wasn't that Tom DeFalco writing with when Johnny Storm marries Lita and all that?
Yeah, that was Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan did the artwork, who's really good. Like Paul Ryan did issues and issues of Tom DeFalco, and most people dislike it. I've heard a few people like it. I'm surprised. There's certainly more on the writing than the art. But
when Invisible Woman was what they call the hoochie suit.
Yeah.
But that's around 400. I'm talking around 300.
Around 400, yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking about 300.
I think the one person that understood Captain America the most was probably Brubaker.
Brubaker did a good run. That
was a good run.
I put Brubaker's run up against anybody.
And I love his crime comics. If you read his crime comics,
I've read some of those. Those are good.
Yeah, they're really good. What is this comic?
He became an SJW.
Yeah, Captain America has more bad patches than good. I agree with that, Fritz. After Jack and Stamp, he mostly became a left-wing cipher. I think Steranko and Byrne did Cap right. Yeah, I agree.
I read those after he left, and it was like Gene Colan took over.
He gave the shield every time there was a Republican president.
And it was exactly that. It was written terribly, but then it looked okay. Gene Colan, John Romita did it, and it was like a early BLM comic. When Red Skull was BLM started, They got the idea from that comic.
Yeah.
The Engelhart Sal Buscema was actually a step up for Captain America. It sold better. I like that. When I was a kid, that was my Captain America. That Sal Buscema.
That's when I started.
Coletta Captain America.
Marcus, what's your I'm not familiar with some of the stuff that you've done. It sounds like you've been around doing quite a few things. Like tell me a little bit about
I act like I did quite a few. I bought a lot of comics.
He puts up a good act there, Nick. Yeah.
I bought a lot of comics. I tried to get into comics. I went to School of Visual Arts in the late 80s. I had Will Eisner, Harvey Kurtzman, Joe Orlando, Gene Colan. And then I tried to get, work for the phone company, try to get into comics for a lot of times, but I've had like a couple of friends in and out of them, and
Okay.
they pay a lot of attention.
Right.
And I published one. We went to all the cons in the '90s, me and my writing partner, and then we were in a comic, and Rich Buckler and Joe Sinnott did the cover, so we would visit these people. But I haven't, it looks like a lot, but I'm going to be out of it for a long time. CG is the closest thing I'm back. But I remember everything because I've been injured in the hospital a couple of times. And so all I'm doing is reading up on comics, reading them on my phone, on tablet, saving injuries. I don't have the comics anymore. I sold them. I had like 40 boxes.
Oh,
Not like John here, but I had a lot of comics.
Mm.
And and then I started saving all the images on Pinterest, and it's all in my head. It's the only thing I remember.
Yeah.
And and I remember the stories. I read a lot of articles. So I don't really did a lot of hanging around doing a lot of comic work. If I did, I'd have a career instead of just working.
Okay.
Yeah, he's
I'm
not
glad I
quite.
talked
He's
to
not a
the kid.
Cliff Clavin, so
Oh,
he actually has some games. So
Oh, my earbuds are done. One of my earbuds are done. The other
Yeah, that's my
earbuds
comic
are good.
that's this collection.
oh my goodness.
Whenever it's like this picture has got me probably 700 subscribers.
Yeah.
It got RJ to talk to me. I owe everything to this picture.
I'll be back.
Sure.
Well, that picture is probably what got him landed him all these people because they're like, okay, well, this is a guy that might know something, so let me go on his channel.
So let me ask you guys now: do you read digital comics?
Not very much. Not very much.
Yes, but there's like always a caveat there. Like, you can basically find anything you want now online. Like, it's so easy to get, terabytes of comics. I think I have maybe like 6 terabytes of comics or something like that. I don't even know anymore. I use it a lot for reference and such, but I prefer the physical always, right? And so if it's something that I love, I have to have it, and so it's in my collection somewhere.
My wife has DVDs upstairs, because now I'm hearing Comixology is wiping out people's accounts, and Amazon is editing some movies and stuff. So
forget it. No,
I got my LPs
physical
right over there. I got my comics right over here.
Yeah.
And it's gonna sound terribly arrogant. I don't mean it to be arrogant, but like now that I'm doing these chats, people are sending me files of their comics to read, and with one exception, just because of who I was talking to, I can't read on digital. I'm not gonna hold up this iPad and read comics. I'm not built that way. It hurts my eyes. I need a physical comic. Not that I'm asking anybody to send me comics. I'll pay for my own comics, but I just can't. I just don't like it. I don't enjoy it.
Well, I think CG buying CG comics has kind of put me back into the comic buying.
Physical comics.
Yeah, physical comics. I've got probably more CG comics than I have regular comics now. So,
now
I have
let me ask
quite
you
a
this.
collection. So,
Cooper, you had a campaign, right? Is your campaign delivered? Are you done?
No, well, the campaign funded, and it's currently in development, due next year. I said June, but I'm probably gonna have to delay it longer than that.
So and Nick,
but yeah,
you've
it's
been part of
active
RJ.
right now.
My question is a digital tier worth it? I'm really struggling over it because I want my whole comic book is I'm trying to make like a love letter to comics that I liked. I just talked to Nick today about making ads. I don't want to spoil the joke, but I want to make some ads. And I talked to Matt Baer about making ads, and I want to put in a letters page. And I want people to hold it in their hands and flip the pages. You know what I mean? But the customer is always right. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I also don't like variant covers. They didn't make variant covers back in 1985, but I also hired an artist to do a variant cover. So,
I have It's well, first of all, okay. How to answer this? Okay, so I'm going to put my marketing hat on for a second.
Well, it is a hat group, so that's cool.
Fair enough. That's true.
I
What are the
everybody.
issues?
don't even
What are
have
the-
a hat.
What are the issues that what are the problems that Comicsgate has? I mean, Comicsgate has like a few, obviously, but one of the big problems that I see just from a marketing standpoint is top of funnel.
Yeah.
And they've talked about it. I can
I don't know what
hear.
that means.
Okay, so top of funnel is basically so in marketing terms, you have a funnel,
Right.
and the idea is you cast a wide net and you try to funnel as many people into a particular action that you
Gotcha.
want them to take. So that action could be as simple as signing up. It could be buy my product. It could be, whatever. Okay. Whatever you want that call to action. Okay?
Join my Substack, guys, while we're talking about this.
Totally. There you go. So but CG, I mean, you can hear. So sorry, I'm going to go on a bit of a rant if you don't mind. But to answer the digital, I got to keep in mind that we're going to be getting to the digital comics question in a second here. Okay, so not only is there a top of funnel problem, but there's let's deal with the sorry. So the top of funnel problem is people have been talking about that they don't know how to get new readers in.
Okay.
Now, this
like
is
I
where
can
the
say,
digital.
nobody just wakes up. I'm going to go on the internet and order a comic book.
So what you have to do is you have to somehow make them care about it.
Right.
Right.
Getting the message out.
And the question is like, what are we doing right now? And this is where I get into this like a little bit of a rant where what everybody's trading on currently at CG is cheap heat. So from, it's a wrestling term, but the cheap heat is external. That is to say that you're looking at anything that's external in order to give you any kind of energy, momentum, any kind of juice, any kind of, however you want to refer to it as. But basically what that means is in order to get noticed, you have to be controversial. In order to get noticed, and if you notice, there was a while there when the SJWs, the woke, the whatever you want to call them, they were kind of quiet. And there wasn't really a whole lot going on in CG. They had their live streams, some of it was funny and entertaining and so on. Some people do better in that situation than others. So what I mean by that is they can actually entertain. Okay. Whereas there are others who can't. And those who can't, they start to fall away. Why do they fall away? Because they don't have the cheap heat. The moment that someone says, let it all burn down. Thank you, Mark Wade, or any of these other asshats that say these things and post this stuff online, suddenly like vultures, everybody comes at it, grabs a hold of it. And the cheap
come out. Yeah.
And the cheap heat starts to warm everybody up again.
I've never heard that term. Cheap heat.
The problem is you need, there's a top of funnel problem.
It's not sustainable.
It isn't sustainable because you have attrition. People are already falling off.
You need more and more to get the same effect.
To keep coming, exactly. And people just get tired. They get exhausted with all the drama. At first, they're interested. At first, I
totally agree. Myself as an example is that I'm not mentioning names because again, I'm not here to hurt anybody's feelings. But there's some streams I just don't care about anymore, and I don't watch because I remember there was like a 4-month period where I was into Howard Stern. And then after 4 months, I'm just like, all this jerk is doing is making fun of his own employees. And it's not funny anymore. And as fast as I got into him, and I'm finding that a lot of these long streams, it's Howard Stern. It's, it's internal jokes that I don't get because, the barrier to entry, I don't know what they're talking about. So I'm not saying I'm doing the best thing, but my style is I just want to talk about comic books. We come on, we'll talk about comic books. I'll talk to fans, I'll talk to creators, I'll talk to people with campaigns. If you have an active campaign, I'll pull you up because I want to help. But I find that to be more sustainable, hour chunks, whatever. Again, I'm self-promoting myself. But I agree with you. And I forget who it was that said, I think it was Chuck Dixon, that the problem with the comic book stores was you don't go into a comic book store unless you're already a fan. Like how many people just wake up? I'm 16 years old. I'm going to you know what, I'm going to get into Spider-Man today, and then they just look up in a phone book back then, and then find a comic book store, go in there and get a comic book. That maybe it did happen, but that was super rare, like a supernova. And
the MCU was pointing people in that direction, but then they got to the comic book shop, and it's all new, all Marvel.
The movie theaters were doing it. Like again, I'll get back to that, but I was saying the Comics Gate and crowdfund, it's even a smaller and a top of funnel. I guess I never heard that term before, but it's even a weirder thing because who's going to wake up and be like, you know what? I'm going to go onto my computer and see if there's a comic book by Telepathic Bunny that happens to be available at this particular moment in this space-time continuum, and click on it, give him money, and then wait. You know what I mean? It's
what you're talking about is CG can only ever be a subset of a subset of a subset.
Yes.
Of a demographic.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, that's all it will ever be. It can never be anything more than that. Okay, now I know that there are those that want to make it more than that, and I'm sure that they've got in their mind a strategy in order to do that. The problem is that if they are serious about it, it's going to take 20 plus years in order to move CG out of the current state of perception that it has, whether you like it or not. Okay, you can wear it like a badge as much as you want to, and you can put it on as armor, and you can go to battle. I get it, but you can only do that for so long. A, and B, if you're going to pivot, you're looking at 20 years at least in order to shake off that old perception and move into some new perception of which nobody really has an idea of what that might be.
Right.
Okay, the closest that I've heard might be RJ. You know, it might be like, you know, I've heard, you know, moving around the circles, the true, the good, and the beautiful, like that kind of thing is probably the closest that it could be. But otherwise, who's got the vision for what Comicsgate is? There isn't a vision. There's a complaint. There's that subset of a subset of a subset is we refer to that as a profile in marketing. And that profile is, listen to the words. The words are very specific. The disgruntled comic buyer. That means they're pre-qualified. They're already a comic buyer. They just happen to be a disgruntled one. The disgruntled part is the cheap heat. Stan Lee wasn't depending on cheap heat. Stan Lee was able to generate that heat himself.
Right. Even my aunt, who wasn't into comic books, knew who Stan Lee was. And if he happened to come on TV or something while look, it's that guy you like, Stan Lee. You know,
I'm sure there was his fair share of drama, his fair share of
he kept it to himself.
Spats and what exactly.
You're telling me he didn't yell
it wasn't in the letters page. It wasn't in the letters page. It wasn't promoted. It wasn't, you know, all that stuff.
Crap, you know.
So what he was able to do was he was able to generate interest. He was able to generate this tension within the reader where you had to know and you had to be there next month and you had to, you couldn't resist.
Right. We were all at a club. I was in the Mighty Marvel Marching Society, you know? Yeah.
Right, exactly. Like that's what CG is lacking. I mean, that's what most independent comics, unfortunately, are lacking, is they don't have a vision and they don't understand. Like they think they have a vision, and I would say for their product, they might have a vision, but for their overall brand and for the profile, the target that they're going for, they don't necessarily have a vision. If I was to ask them to articulate, how are you going to reach into your target, your profile, and actually create tension within them? And that tension leads to your product or to your world or to your wares or to your brand. Nobody would have an answer for that because they don't even know how to frame the question properly.
Yeah. When I had, like, again, this is why I'm glad that Eric July does exist, because, you know, he's I would dare say that most of his customers are probably people who never bought a comic book before in their life. You know what I mean? And they followed him because of, I guess he was a rapper. I didn't know that until just recently. And his what is the name? The Blaze Network people, which is great because he has a bunch of fans Maybe because of them, they'll come over and they'll get Telepathic Bunny's comics or RJ's comics or mine and Marcus's comics, you know. But I asked Eric July, I said, do you think this is sustainable? Like a $35 comic book that comes out every 6 months that I have to go online and purchase, you know, maybe the online stuff, everybody shops online now. I don't know, but that's why
there's a phenomenon that's happening this year that I've seen, and that is that the normies.
Singer? I didn't know that.
I'm sorry. The normies are looking for something.
Yeah.
And we see this in one example is Oliver Anthony. Okay, this guy in the backwoods, sing.
Oh, is he that guy that sang that country song?
Hard out does Rich Man North of Richmond, and suddenly, boom, number one on Billboard. Million views. There's indications that the normies are looking for something, and they're not finding it in the mainstream. And so that's who we really need to reach, because we got, that's a whole stream. There's a whole big, gigantic group out there that's untapped. Earlier, Cooper, was the movies looking.
The movies show that people are interested in superheroes. And I don't think that there is superhero fatigue. I think it's just bad movie fatigue. I'm amazed that.
Another example is
I could see billboards with the Fantastic Four on them, but they can't sell comics. I think the publishers are dropping the ball.
This is a year where a $14 million movie took down Indiana Jones on 4th of July weekend.
Yeah. Well, I got to see this.
This is where Godzilla -1, $15 million movie took down a movie that was over $350 million budgeted.
Well, I haven't seen a DC movie since Man of Steel. When they fundamentally misunderstand Superman, that just tells me that the DC movies aren't for me. What's up, Marcus? You've been quiet for a while.
Oh, I'm just listening. Fundamentally, understand Superman. They don't understand the heroic journey to people that are doing. Scott Snyder doesn't understand exactly what it is to be a hero. And the Marvel movies did okay for 10 years. And that's a long run till Endgame. Now, everybody has their quibbles about Endgame or Ms. Marvel, which was before that. But all the other ones where they talked about a good, solid story. The first Captain America, the first Iron Man is really watchable. Black Panther. Now the people doing it don't understand. They don't respect it. They don't respect the comics. It's not even about respecting the comics. They don't understand why they're popular, why we want to make these. They certainly will understand the family, because Hollywood is so anti-family. So the Fantastic Four will never be a good movie. And they'll never understand Captain America again.
I feel like a battered woman, a battered wife. Oh, please, the next one will be good.
And the movies, I had a retailer that I used to go to, and he used to say the movies whenever they had a movie, now this was before the MCU, they would not come in. That would not drive any comic sales. And the only movie that I remember that drove comic sales was Batman 89. When Batman 89 came out, that was it. That was the one that, they had the variant covers of Batman for the first time. They introduced like 3 different comics. That drove the sales. All the others don't drove the sales, because the comics don't care about the movies, because the movies don't make the comics any money. So those editors and writers, they don't care. So when the MCU was big and they went in, and Iron Man was a teenage girl, Thor was a Jane Foster, Captain America was Falcon. Those weren't the guys that were on the screen. The guys on the screen were way closer to what we read, even though they were closer to the Ultimates version of what we read. They were way closer. And nobody wanted to buy those comics. And the retailers said, hey, we can't sell these. This is terrible. What are you doing?
I remember that.
And then they told, and the retailers were called bigots. You hate women.
Absolutely.
And then they were quiet until 2 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago when that retailer went off and Mark Miller said something about it.
I want to talk about this.
So, they don't, it's not a synergy. Everybody thinks it's a synergy. It's not a synergy. Most of the time, the comic companies don't want the corporations to know what they're doing, so they can do whatever they want. So they're not dictated to. And for the most of the time that works, they make just enough money. The comics are always dying, right? Yeah. They were dying in the 50s, they're dying in the 60s, they were dying in the 70s, 80s. and 90s were pretty good. Then they were dying in the late 90s, you know?
Well, I did a
So
video
it's
today
always on the
from
edge.
Barnes and Noble that was like two bookshelves full of Western comics, and then I panned around, and there's like
It's all manga.
4 sections full of manga, and
I got
and the
15 nieces
big,
and nephews.
Yeah.
Not one
But
of them reads comics, and every one of them reads manga.
But if you listen to Ask Chuck Dixon today, he talks about the opposite. Instead of superheroes were big because we all read superheroes and we all respect the 60s. But in the 50s and 60s, the common people buying romance comics, Western comics. DC had 8 romance comics. I know because I studied the romance comics and I
Well,
posted
Chuck
covers.
Dixon also said something that really made me stop, and he said the average person doesn't like comics. And that got my gander up, and then I stopped and I thought about it. Yes, like the average, like we're freaks. You know, for various reasons, we are freaks.
You know,
and like
when I was
said of a subset, we are comic fans. And think
when
about
I was going to
America versus how many people, even at the height of comics, how many people were buying comics.
When I was going to school, you know, elementary school in the 70s.
Right.
I went to elementary school in the 70s and then high school in the 80s. There weren't that many kids who read comics. I know that there's other places that say, well, we had a comic club, and we had the 10 guys. I had nobody, and I would not tell anybody, unless my close friends, my really good friends didn't care. And I bought comics, and we went to rock concerts.
Absolutely.
You know, that's what we did. In high school,
I was known as the comic book guy, but even I
and I drew the comics, so they respected that. But I didn't really. I found out afterwards that this one read comics and this one read comics when I saw them later. But we didn't talk about it. It was just as bad as it is now. In a weird way, it's just as bad as it is now.
My roommate in college.
In a way, I think more people read them, but not that many.
Months ago, when he saw me, oh, you're making a comic book? We were roommates in college for 6 months, and we didn't talk about comics. You know what I mean?
Nobody, like when I worked at the phone company, nobody else had anything to do with comics. They go, oh, you're doing a comic? How come you're doing that? How come you're not making money at that? As if I could make a ton of money doing comics. Then I did better at the phone company, obviously. You know, with a lot of medical coverage. The best medical coverage ever. And so it's always been a problem. It's been a problem since the 50s, since they shut it down. Since Wortham got it shut down with the comics code. And the people that really bought the comics, non-collectors, were Dell comics. And that's the thing that Chuck talks about. The Dell comics and the Western comics that did Bugs Bunny and did Eve Arden comics and every Western comic and Maverick and every TV show had a comic, Bewitched, because those are the ones you could run into, and they had a couple of comics for a long trip. You know, and for a long trip, you're going to buy a couple of comics. Those are the ones moms and dads were buying for the kids.
Shut up, Johnny.
They weren't buying Iron Man. I mean, just that's how it is.
I like this.
It was always kind of nichier than we think. Now it's CG. You're talking about sub. It's a super niche.
Yeah.
To be a super successful CG person and make $100,000, what do you have to have 1,200 backers? That's not that many people.
I know. Like.
You know,
like how many comics?
You had that thing, John. I was thinking about you had that interview with Fabian Nicienza, and he said, "Well, if I did a comic and only 100 people wanted to buy it, I wouldn't waste my time." Well, you know what? We got plenty of creators happy with 75, 100, 125, and they're like, "Oh, that's great," because the cost is paid for itself. At some point, it pays for itself. That's all you can hope for.
We don't have Disney backing us.
What does he think? You know, that's the attitude.
Yeah.
You go back to rewatch that interview. You realize how snotty he really was towards it.
Yeah,
I realized. And he's a creator.
I had to bite my tongue through that whole hour and a half. When I showed him my back issue log, he goes, "You have mental problems." I was like, "Dude, I'm your freaking customer."
And this guy wrote the X-Men after Claremont, and people did like it. It wasn't as good as Claremont, but people did like it.
He's a good writer.
Him and Scott Lobdell married, Cyclops and Jean Grey. And
I wanted to talk about this comment over here. You don't sense a cultural sea change coming? People abandoning stream services to watch podcasts with people chit-chat. We'll do that more, please. More people watch streaming of us chit-chatting. I don't even turn my TV on. I can't, Fritzy Snitchell, I can't even remember the last time I turned my TV on. My wife, if my wife was to leave me, even with the remote control on my table, I wouldn't know how to turn it on and change the channels because you got to go into this service, to this service. This show is on this. I don't know. So I do see a sea change coming. I do think that we have turned a corner. I'd like to think it's for good. I do think people are sick. Like I just watched the special of Ricky Gervais last night making fun of wokeness and people cheering. So I do think that a change is coming. Now, will that make a sales of comics? Can I translate that into people buying my comic? I hope so.
I can't say I don't watch the TV. I watch way too much sports.
I think a change is coming. I think that is changes coming for the rest of the country, but the enclaves that control the media there's never going to be a change there. And so I think the rest of the country is basically going to create their own parallel economy and leave them behind. I think that's what's going to happen.
We also have this great comment.
People
will purchase online for good quality. Eric has the Soka sisters and Baron after Baron have huge following. Yes. Mike Barron said something that I agree with 100%. That you tell a good story, people will come. Now, obviously, there's a little bit of it has to get out there, it has to get into the right hands. Good art and everything. But I kind of agree. Like right now, like I said, Wraith of God and Fiendish, I make no bones about that. They're the two best comic book that CGs are putting out. And they're great. And they should be celebrated. Like if the comic book industry had its druthers, Fiendish would be nominated for Eisner Awards. I think it's that good. And I do think a couple more years of comics of that quality, like Thomas Valiant's up there. I hope my comics.
Max Visaggio is as Eisner nominee.
I know. I didn't want to go that route, but I'm saying if we get a
Eisner's
couple
don't mean what they meant
of Wraith of God quality comics, I think it'll change. I don't mean to be mean, but I read a lot of CG comics. The art was great and the story was minimal. It was like a step back into old image. So
Yeah.
And when my comic comes out, let me know if the writing's not that good, because I know the art is going to be good. I know the coloring is going to be good. Let me know. I don't want to be
do what a lot of people don't do and get somebody to read it beforehand and tell you before you go into production.
Oh, and do a Google search of all the superhero names.
I know,
including Mr.
I think we all have learned that lesson. Huh? I also think that Eric should have hired Mike Barrett and Chuck Dixon before he started.
Again,
and they should have introduced those characters, or he could have, and he'll be better off for it now after they're done. But now it's like closing the barn door after the horse left. He made $3 million on the first one, $2 million on this one, $1 million on this. All a ton of money, but it's not the same money, same amount.
Brian says the best bridge to normies would be a film of high quality social media shorts with comics. I think this one is tailored right for Nick. This one flops right on your lap. What do you think about this?
Well,
I'm breaking one of my rules. I'm eating.
I think. Okay, this depends on once again, like marketing hat. Like you have to think about this in terms of like what's 5 years look like, 10 years, 20 years, and so on. If like there's a lot of trying to appropriate manga sales as though they're comic sales. We've seen that. It's a joke. And why is it a joke? Because these manga is created in Japan. Like these are imports. They're not manufactured. They're not made by artists here. I mean, well, Marvel is actually hiring a lot of artists outside of America, so there's that too. But like this is product that isn't of this culture. It's not product that is of this industry. It's not product of the soil. Yes, it's different. Absolutely, it's different. By definition, that is different. You cannot say that these are two of the same types of product. Like you can call it the same medium. You can say, okay, manga and it's all sequential art. I get that. But you can't say that these are the same markets. They are not the same markets. However, there is a caveat to that. What does that look like in 20 years? Okay. Why do I say that? Because if you've got manga that's now obviously got a strong foothold, it's kicking ass and everything else. If you're smart and you're on this soil, your feet are on this soil, and you're a creator, you're going to watch what's going on in that space. Not because of the creators, not necessarily because of the art, not necessarily because of the story or anything like that. You're going to look at your buyer or that buyer. That's who you're looking at. You're trying to create a product to sell to them. Now, their taste in 5 years, what will it be? Will they still be into shonen, or will they be into something else? Will they be looking for something a little bit more sophisticated, or have they grown out of manga altogether and no longer collect and no longer read? The point is that in 5 years' time, you can ask different questions than you can in 10 and you can in 20. But if you're not looking at that space, and if you're just dismissing it, as I've dismissed it when I said it is a foreign product, it's imported necessarily of a different market. The point is that even though you can separate it that way, if you're trying to get a foothold back, if you're trying to get North American comics to compete with this foreign, product, then you're going to have to look at who the heck is buying all this damn foreign product.
And
what is
why?
it they want? What's in their heart? What are they thinking about? Get in their head so that when you start to make your comic, it can compete with manga for their hearts, not for your ego,
Right.
not for your arguments online, not for this nonsense, but for their heart. That's what you're competing for. That's what Stan Lee was competing for.
And talk to the comic book stores. Aren't these supposed guys the foot soldiers? You know what I mean? They're the ones. If I owned a comic book store, or if I ran a comic book company, I would talk to the retailers, because these are the guys that are talking to Marcus and T Bunny and Axe coming in, and Brian Suddenly Old. Why didn't you buy Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur? Well, I didn't like this particular character because of this. Oh, okay, you know what I mean. And then it's kind of silly, because I can't think of any other business, and I'm not a business person, where that information is not only right there, but these people are willing to talk about that information for free, and we're just dismissing it. You know, like, here you go, guys.
I watched Mark Miller's conversation with retailers, and they're not ready yet. They're not ready yet, because none of them would say what is the real problem, and that is the
because
content.
these guys.
None of them would criticize the content. They criticized everything around it, but they wouldn't criticize the content.
Because it takes 2 weeks for them to go out of business. Comic book stores are surviving by the skin of the teeth, and that was even in the 90s. You know, back when I was working at the comic book store, Larry, he would move out, he would get his own apartment. There would be a bad 6-month period. He's back with his parents. He was only a couple of years older than me, so you know what I mean. It's not like he was a 40-year-old guy.
Well, see, everything that they've mentioned, though, has been problems for about 2 decades now. And everything they were complaining about is something that's been trending for, well over 10 years or more. But what the problem happened, and Mark Miller was kind of hitting around it. He says, in 2016, something happened, and I don't know what it is. Right, it's like, what happened in 2016, Mark? What happened is they went off their nut. Okay, they went crazy after they lost the election in 2016, and the content went completely hostile towards the people who traditionally bought comic books. And none of them will say it. None of them will talk about it. Nobody of them will even admit that there's an issue. And that's why ultimately they're doomed until they look at the content and they start criticizing the content, which is what Glenn did. Which is what that comic book guy did that got attacked. And he was very mild about it. Yeah. But he finally talked about the content, and they dogpiled him because they don't want anybody to talk about the content. And when he went on with Mark Miller, his interview, he backed off of the content. He didn't say anything about the content. But that is the entire issue, is the content. Okay? None of the characters are who we recognize. None of the things are what we recognize or care about, and none of the superhero universe that we grew up in and that we know like the back of our hands is still present. in these comic books.
And everything that you're describing goes to the profile I was talking about before. The subset of a subset of a subset. The disgruntled comic buyer.
Yeah.
So when we're trying to sell our product, we need to figure out how to go top of funnel with this. We need to figure out how to get new people reading. And you asked about the digital comics before. There are a bunch of different solutions, but you have to ask yourself the question, like, where do you want to be and how do you want to present yourself in the market space? And what is it that obviously they want? Like, what is it that the potential customer might want? Like, for instance, if you're going to offer digital, why offer a PDF? PDFs are easily distributed, all that. Instead, you could have a website. It has a either a paywall or some sort of locked off area where people can actually go and read pages. Now, you might offer the first 10 pages of a book for free. You might offer the entire first issue for free on your website. That's fine. But what you do is, if you have like a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo campaign, every purchase, that individual gets a free access to that site. They get their own code, they get their own login, they get their whatever. Now they can go and they can actually read the book as it's being made. You can read the pages as it's being made. You've already bought the book. You paid your $25 plus shipping for it through Indiegogo. So now that you've bought it, all this is now a bonus. And for those who want to wait, they wait. And they don't want the spoilers and whatever else. You can decide what your upload schedule is. Your upload schedule is every time there's a page is done, it goes up. Maybe not. Maybe you do every time you have a full scene done. A scene could be 2 pages, it could be 1 page, it could be 5 pages. The whole block goes up as a scene, and so that they can read the scene. Maybe you do it in issues, just like you would in a comic, where it's 22 pages as a book, and now it's living on your site. And so you've sold to your audience an Indiegogo that has 80 pages or 70, do math, 6 pages or whatever. And now you can put 22 pages, every month as it's being released. Right. And so now what are you doing? Yes, you're doing a digital offer, but you're not giving that away necessarily, for free. You're not providing it. You're not making it too easy for it to be distributed. They're going on your site, so they see more of your product every time they're going to read the next chapter, the next book, the next scene, the next page, whatever it is. On your website, you also have behind the scenes stuff. So you have various like interviews with the writer, with the artist, with this, with that, whatever, talking about this page. Like, for instance, I do all my penciling in Clip Studio. Clip Studio has released a new feature where it can record every single brush stroke you make, which means that by the time I'm finished a page or a cover, by the time I'm done, I can produce a video where it shows the buildup of all of my brush strokes.
That's pretty cool.
And now I can come in and I can do an audio commentary talking about, and I can scrub back and forth on the video, talking about specific areas that I was working on at that time, what I was thinking at that time, what reference I was referencing at that time, et cetera, what I was trying to do or achieve with the story, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You've like when I produce the video, it's around 15 to 25 minutes, depending on how long it took me to do the page. But when I do my audio commentary, I can stretch that out for another hour. That's content. That content can live on the site, and that content, that particular page, that particular drawing, that particular video, it all lives on the same place on the site. And so now when you bought your book, where everybody's complaining, it's taking so long to come out, but you bought it already. It's yours. So why not let them into a portal that lets them see the making of, that lets them read it as it's coming out. You get to control exactly how it's released. So if you want it to only to be released every scene, you do that. If you want it to be released every book, you do that. But they know that by the time this thing is ended, you could even withhold the final chapter until the last book.
Give me a little bit of this. until
the last book has been shipped. But the point is that now there's more to what they're buying. There's what we refer to this as it's not about, they talk about, is it sustainable for Eric July to continue to sell at $35 a book? Maybe, maybe not. The question isn't whether or not the $35 is sustainable. The question is, what is the value?
Right.
What Eric produced initially, the value isn't very high. Not very many people liked the story. Not very many people liked the art. And it's hurting him. And we can see that it's hurting him, even if he doesn't want to admit it. But I think he's a big boy. I think he's course correcting. It seems like he's trying to course correct.
He's hired people to fix those problems.
And to help him to learn his craft. Okay. All these are good decisions, right?
Right.
But the $35 price point is steep for people. So the question isn't whether or not you should make the book cheaper. Apple never gives sales. They do value add. Buy our book or buy our MacBook, and we will give you a $200 gift certificate. So they still got your money.
Right.
But they're never, ever trying to say, they're never trying to make their product less in perception. Perception is everything.
Right.
So you don't discount an Apple product. You never did. That's sacrilegious. You never discount an Apple product. What you do instead is you give a value add. So if Eric is going to create a portal, and on that portal is a digital offering, and that digital offering comes with all the behind the scenes stuff and the extras and everything else, he can still hold the final chapter if he wants to, release and make sure that the book is distributed to everybody. Everybody's got the physical copy in their hands. And the moment he knows that that's done, then he can release the final chapter on digital as well.
These are good ideas.
Right, but this is the thing is
I'm
that
have feet pics from Cooper, so that's worth 10, 15.
You don't want to see my feet. Trust me. Yeah.
All right, here's the value. I will not release the feet pics of Cooper
unless you're into freak shows. I mean, that's a possibility.
Marcus is going to do free work now. If that means this guy's going to keep his socks on.
What I'm suggesting is one solution of many. It depends on where you want to go with your business, and it depends on who your profile is and what it is in their heart that they want. What do they want from you? You have to really put your ego aside. Yes, you have to be a good writer. Yes, you have to be a good artist. And yes, you have to learn your craft, but you also have to learn about your target, your profile, your buyer.
Yeah, these are all good ideas. Do you remember a couple years ago, Allegiance Arts? That was the Brightwires. They did a deal with comics in Walmart.
Walmart, yeah.
And I remember a lot of people were kind of pissed off about that. I must be a weirdo because it didn't bother me that Walmart.
Didn't bother me.
You probably didn't bother the back the book that they.
But I backed the book. But
the issue was that they put out the comics at Walmart before all the backers got the book.
Right. And
that's a mistake. You gotta do your backers first. Those are the people who back the book, and that was a mistake.
Agreed.
So I understand.
And that they can't get out of that.
It didn't particularly bother me because I got beautiful gold embossed covers and
those comics are beautiful comics. And I'm waiting on a Bass Reeves trade now.
Read in a long time. They are phenomenal comics, but I kind of, first off, I don't even think that they understood the deal with the devil that they were getting into. This is Walmart, you know what I mean? I think it's like making a deal with Darth Vader, like
the big Satan.
So, good night, Fritzy. Thank you for great comments. Thank you. We'll be ending this soon anyway. I'm getting sleepy, but anyway, I admire that they tried something new. Did it work? I don't think it worked, and I think it cost them a lot of fans. And but I'm not mad at them for trying something. They tried something different, and I kind of admired that. But and I don't think they realized the scope and magnitude of dealing and magnitude of working with Walmart. I bet they took a bath for that. I bet you they lost a lot of money.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, and they lost money for other reasons too, apparently.
Yeah. If you can find these Allegiance Arts comics, they are phenomenal comics. And I really do hope that they come out with more issues. Yeah. The most important thing is target new young readers. That means connecting with the parents. I will also blame mainstream and Comicsgate for neglecting children. My comic is going to be for the most part, PG. Maybe something now that I think about it might.
If I had a daughter, I would get her Starlight Cats.
Starlight Cats is great.
It's a hell of a comic.
Right.
It's a very good comic.
That was a great.
Yeah, and CG comics are pretty mature comics.
Right.
A lot of them are pretty mature comics.
Starlight Cats is the one exception I could think of. But me as a parent, I'm also not going to spend $25 for a comic book to give to a 9-year-old that's going to destroy it in 8.5 minutes. So Starlight Cats, I think would have been better as a floppy on newsprint. It's cheaply made. Mine's
Don't get them Omega Storm.
Mine's in a backing board but so that's something that I'd like to think about. Like how we got to get kids again. I had my buddy over and he brought his 2 daughters over, and I gave him alternate comics, Baron Rat.
Well, whoever wrote Starlight Cats needs to start writing Glorious Rex. That's all I got to say. That's all I'll say about it.
But I gave my buddy's kids comics, and they looked at it.
The same people wrote them.
It's that.
They were like, "What is this?"
Oh, really? Because
they didn't know. They didn't know.
And obviously, it was 2 different writers because that second one sucked. Okay.
Sorry,
Cooper, you talked over. What were you saying,
John? Did you say that they left the comics and they?
Yeah. Cooper was talking. I said I got kid friendly comics, alternate comics, Baron Rat. I want them to get and it's comics made for kids, and it's a nice, good, clean, wholesome kids comic.
Yeah.
And I gave it to them, and they looked at it, and they looked at their father. They go, "What is this?" And the father said, "It's a comic book." And he said to me, "John, they've never seen a comic book before." And they looked through it, they flipped through it, they put it on the table. And when they left, they left the comics on the table. They just were not interested in the slightest in comic books.
There's something to be said for that. I mean, and there's this is a harsh reality. I think that us who love comics really have to really have to figure out like what the barriers are for kids. You'd asked about the digital version. I can't tell you how many parents I see babysitting their kids with their iPad. Like they don't even interact with their kids anymore. It's basically the kids are sitting in front of the iPad. That's babysitting their children. And so
I go to a restaurant and there's kids with an iPad, they can't even sit still through a dinner.
No. Actually, this is a terrible story, but I know one person, I won't even say that, but they have a child who was so obsessed with being on their iPad that he literally crapped himself. He wouldn't go to the washroom. He would not go to the washroom. He had to stay on the iPad. So he just crapped himself. Yeah. Think of that. Like that's extreme. But I mean, this is the kind of thing that's going on.
I have a niece that has kids. So I guess what's that? My grandniece? I don't know because I don't have kids. But I on Christmas last year, I brought them this game, and it's Batman and Robin fighting the Joker. It's Funko Pop combat game. It's actually a pretty good game, easy for kids. And I gave it to him. The kid goes, "Oh!" He ripped the pack, and then he goes, "This isn't a video game," and he literally threw it in the air, which bothered me on so many levels because the kid wasn't in a game. And second off, he was that rude in front of his uncle. You know what I mean? So I looked at the father, and he just goes, "What can you do?" I was like, "You can beat the kid."
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
My kids are. Thank God, my kids are grown.
Yeah. I'm talking like 7 or 8 years old. You know what I mean?
They play football.
At least they would like Batman figures, but what do I know? Kids aren't interested.
And I mean, to say that they're not interested, they're interested in manga, right? So we know that they are interested. They're just not interested in something,
right?
And we have to figure out what that element or what those elements are. I mean, remember we've already established CG is a subset of a subset of a subset. Part of the problem is that as T-Bunny was saying that they're catering to an older audience. as you guys are saying, they're neglecting children.
Yeah.
So but at the same time, they're lamenting that they don't have a top of funnel, like that they don't have new readers. And it's like, well, where do you think these new readers are going to come from? Oh, well, we'll just recapture the old ones from the 90s. Well, okay, like I get it. You're going to find some people who still don't know about CG, or still don't know about crowdfunding, or still don't know that like independent comics are kicking ass or whatever. Fine, you might get a couple of these people, but how many really are there out there that would care enough to get back into this hobby?
Yeah,
really?
Like the comics of the 90s are grandpas now. Are they even interested in Daredevil anymore?
I'm sure there's some of them, but
sure
now we're getting into a subset of 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 a subset. Like it's getting smaller. It's not getting wider. And the way that you get wider is new blood. New blood means kids. So why are we continuing to make, like, Starlight Cats really is a shining, like a beacon in this particular example, because it is attracting, or attempting at least to attract, a wider audience. With that
book, the only comic that my wife was interested. My wife, she'll watch all the Marvel movies with me, and we'll sit and watch the silliest things on TV. But she's not going to sit down and read comics. But Starlight Cats came, and I showed it to. Oh, look at this, cats! You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I know people that were like, "I'm not magical cats."
And they made fun of Shane relentlessly for that.
They did. And
I came into CG after Starlight Cats, so I didn't have a chance for that.
Yeah, they made fun of him for it, and I honestly, like, you ask yourself
That's
the
probably
question.
why I hadn't done 2 yet.
I wondered. Ask yourself the question, like, if you had a stack of CG books in your hands, and your job, you're not a creator, okay? Your job, you're just a salesman. That's your job. You have to market these books. You have a stack of them in your hand. Which one would you want to market? Because your job is to sell as many books as you possibly can in any venue you can find.
If I got all of these and I'm Mr. Marketer, I think the easiest ones and the ones that would be Fiendish, because with Lord of the Rings going on right now,
Fiendish is fine, but there is some gore. But yes, I agree.
Right. And then Starlight Cats, because I could get that into kids.
You could walk into any place essentially and drop Starlight Cats, and you could potentially make a sale.
Right.
But you can't do that with Cyberfrog. I know EVS thinks he can. You can't. You can't do that with Cyberfrog. You can't do that even with Fiendish. I love Fiendish. I bought Fiendish. You can't do that with Fiendish, although its quality is amazing. The problem is the gore and all that. So you can't really walk into anywhere with it.
And there's nudity and cursing and slavery. It's not made for kids.
No.
This is one of the best crowdfunded comics I've seen.
That one's near at hand is probably the closest.
But this there's nudity, there's violence, but this is
immortalizing.
Like I think I could sell this to people who don't read comics. It's not superheroes, you know what I mean?
And isn't it an interesting thought experiment when you start asking the question, not as a creator, but as a marketer? When you start asking the question, if I was a salesman and I had to pick a stack, like 1 or 2 or 3 comics out of the stack of CG books that have been, what book would I choose and where would I go? When you start asking those kind of questions, as we know, wisdom is found in the questions and asking the right questions.
Right.
And right now it's not about that. Like, again, the books that are being created, everybody's trying to relive their 90s heyday, their 90s nostalgia.
That's literally my mission statement.
You guys just hit on something. So you're thinking about Starlight Cats. The other book that's all ages that was not super popular, either the first issue or the second issue, is Andy Smith's First Man, a true Spider-Man type superhero, Captain Marvel, kind of like the little kid, the teenager becomes the superhero, doesn't know what to do. He gets an ego, in a bright colored city, fights the bad guy. It's not okay. Maybe the woman could cover up a little more, but it's not. But it's a sexy woman and sexy guy, but it's still a comic. And that sold him in the second issue 55,000. He does Kordrak, which probably is a better comic, but it's full of gore. It's full of this. It's full of that. He is going to do. I can't talk too much about it, but there will be a version of it with some of it toned down for kids. So he's thinking of that and in different formats. Again, I'm not supposed to say, but those are and Starlight Cats. What did that do? 50, 60,000. Inglorious Rex. Which, by the way, T-Bunny, I have some problem with Glorious Rex too. I don't think I hate it as much as you, but I do have problems with it. It's like $300,000-$400,000 book.
Yeah.
CG doesn't like those books, so the creators aren't going to do it. CG doesn't want hot, blue sky, bright comics.
Don't tell me that.
Generally,
the thing about
not at that level. Not at that level of comic. Like how much does Alternatives sell? Alternatives doesn't sell as much as Cyberpunk.
No.
And Ethan thinks Cyberpunk can sell to anybody. Cyberpunk is a pretty dark story. It's a dark story. It's not a bad story. It's a dark story. I wouldn't give it to a 10-year-old.
Well, that's the thing. Is it that
well, this is
go ahead.
Good, Cooper.
That one right there is meant to be kind of like it's X-Men level, like mid-'80s X-Men. And
Hybrids, yeah.
Who does
really
that?
Great book. So
You're cutting in and out, Cooper. Who does hybrids?
Luke Stone.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Luke Stone Studios.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's really a great book. It's all ages. And it's very well written. It's got great characters. And it's the gore is very minimum. But it's a lot. If it's gore, it's more implied than it is actually blatant. But I would give it to a teenager from preteen up.
My comic
the big money comics are not necessarily kid friendly in CG. It's not about bright superheroes or bright cats. It's more like a little darker science fiction, darker fantasy.
Thomas Valiant
horror is big.
Could be sold to kids. There's nothing. I would, that's my goal is to have my comic book. Just imagine we had a time machine that it would be on a spinner rack next to Claremont's X-Men or John Byrne's Fantastic Four, and a kid would be like, "Oh, look at this! Look at this! Look at this! Look at this!" But an adult would, "Oh, okay, I think John's laying the groundwork for this." That's what Chris Claremont was doing. He was writing comics for smart 10-year-olds. But I'm a dumb 55-year-old. I think I balance out that smart 10-year-old, and I could still look at those comics and enjoy them for the subtleties, the craft. That's what I, So I don't know. Am I blowing smoke?
No. I mean, but there's another. I mean, this is a multifaceted problem, right? So we've established that the problem of the subset, right? There's an issue with top of funnel. There's an issue with the product not being geared towards, let's say, kids, like the widest sort of audience, the new reader, the new blood, as it were. But we also have another issue, which is the auteur, the ego, the one who thinks that they are the the greatest gift to comics.
Oh, me.
The ones. John, for instance.
John.
Everybody. I understand as a creator. I get this, right? I'm not trying to say that I too don't want to create the best thing that's ever made. To quote Jack Black, in what was it, Pick of Destiny? We want to be the greatest band ever, right? Or greatest rock band ever. I get it. We all have that sort of drive, that kind of thing. We want to produce that awesome book that's memorable, that's lives on forever, indelible character that's stuck in your head like Spider-Man will be forever. I get it. I understand. Put that aside for a second. Stop making your damn auteur. Stop being an auteur. Stop trying to be like this creative genius or whatever
sell
else.
Hot
Just
dogs.
Sell hot dogs. Tell a good story. Just start there. And maybe you can get to this, summit, maybe not. But the idea is let's stop with this, being dark, the Snyderverse and the whole, it's too dark. It's too this, it's too that. It's not what, the general public is. That's why I say Cyberfrog. I know Ethan thinks
story. There's things that people want. Superman's the good guy. People like Superman. Superman's intrinsically good. And then I watched Man of Steel, and it had none of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I noped out. I said, I'm done with the DC. I saw Wonder Woman because my friends all dragged me, and I didn't want to be the one. And I ended up like Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman, they did well. But I agree with you. If I want to sell good, fun superhero comic books.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I would love it if if there was lunchboxes with the Patriarch and all my characters on it. But that's besides the point. I want to sell a fun comic book that people are gonna for however long, a half hour, 40 minutes, 20 minutes reading this, going, that was good. I enjoyed that. That was a fun thing. And if it's laying on the table and the nephew comes over, what's this? Pick it up. Oh, this was fun. I like this. And then maybe they'll put a cape on and play. You know what I mean? That's really my goal. I have no illusions of saving cards or retiring from my job, but
as I said, it's a multifaceted problem that we're staring down. Like, for instance, not to harp on Cyberfrog, but as I said, like, Ethan thinks that Cyberfrog can sell anywhere, and I say no. There are some kids who would find that stuff scary, who would find Cyberfrog scary. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's a lot of kids who just think it's absolutely cool, but there are going to be those who don't. Like, they're gonna actually be scared. When they see this particular design. Why is that? This goes to, I said, there's a multifaceted problem. One of the other problems is art direction. Nobody is telling Ethan, hey, cool off on the highly detailed artwork. I know that you want to kick ass. I know you want to be awesome. I know this is your style. I know this is what you like, but you're drawing Cyberfrog. Did you forget you're drawing Cyberfrog?
Right.
What do I mean when I say that? Well, what did they do with Eastman Laird? What did they do with Eastman Laird? Like their whole comic. What they did was they tunified it. They simplified it.
Right.
They made it more approachable.
Absolutely right, because he's making little plastic. Like I got it right over here. Little toys that he wants little kids to, as I drop it, little kids to play with. You know what I mean? And now he's making the master racers and stuff like that. But that's not kid-friendly art, and I'm not talking about boobies and gore. It's too complicated.
Bear in mind, it's not that master race. Okay, before somebody hurts it. Ethan is not making that master race. Okay?
Yeah, master race. But
let's clarify.
So there's nobody that's going to tell Ethan this. Like, there's no art director for Ethan. Where's the Ethan for Ethan?
Right.
The guy that's going to keep Ethan in check. And I don't mean that I'm picking on Ethan just because this example is on the burner. But I mean that for all of us. Is anybody hiring an art director for themselves if they're an artist? Is anyone hiring an editor for themselves if they're a writer?
Funny that you said that, because Brian Bauer and I had that conversation, that, like, he goes, John, you have to be an art director now. You have to, when people send in your art, you have to be like, okay, this works, doesn't work. Is this part? You can't,
Or you hire an art director if you're not comfortable as the art director. You hire an art director. But like, the point is that everybody. The one thing that I noticed about this particular industry that's different from the other industries of which I've worked, which is many, is that in this industry, in other industries, everybody kind of goes in their own lane. Right. So I wasn't hired to do that job. Don't ask me to do that job is the usual problem you have in that world. Right. I was hired to be, whatever, an electrician. I was not hired to be a carpenter. Get the carpenter in here to fix that so that I can get my wires in through.
Yeah.
Okay.
We put up pipes to close off people's tools, power tools that they couldn't. You should, that's not my problem.
You shouldn't.
Now you got to hire us to undo these pipes.
So that's usually the problem in other industries. But in comics, everybody's an expert at everything. Everybody's an expert at everything. So nobody wants to ask for help. I should generalize. I shouldn't be totalitarian. I shouldn't put this in a totalitarian, or it's not a totality. It isn't everybody. I should say very few. Very few are looking to ask for help. Very few are humble enough to take criticism to heart. I'm not even sure, based off of people's what I sense in people's pride. I'm not even sure that they're able to get past their pride enough in order to really hear.
Well,
what people
one
are
of the
trying to
big
tell them.
issues, though, one of the big issues is the fandoms are so rabid that even if you have a legitimate concern, if you have a legitimate, legitimate like dispute or legitimate, criticism or critique. I'll say critique, not criticism, but critique.
Yeah.
Even if you legitimately have something that person needs to hear, they've got a whole bunch of fans that are going to swarm you and keep you from being heard. And plus, the creator is going to think of you as a hater because of the nature of social media. And so I could have told Eric July before that first book came out exactly what the problems were going to be. When he announced, I am the writer and I don't have an editor, I knew exactly the issues that book was going to have. Because he didn't write anything before. That was we're his guinea pigs. It's the very first writing job.
Yeah.
Every first writer, I had the same issues when I first started writing that he's suffering now, because I had to work those things out. Just like Jack Kirby said, you got to draw 100 bad pages before you get to or 1,000 bad pages until you get to your first good one. That's the same with writing. And so when somebody tells me my first writing output is going to be for sale, it's going to be what I'm crowdfunding, I know immediately what the issues are going to be. And even after years of writing, I still have some issues that I have to address. Just like any artist is going to have to address. I don't do hands very well, so I'm going to have to work on hands. But when somebody says that writing is devalued enough that I can come off the street and write my first comic and it's going to be awesome.
And how tired are we of John just walking around saying that he's holier than thou, that he's going to write the greatest book that's ever been written? Like, John is just basically walking on water.
Seriously.
Saying he's...
Hey, I allowed you peasants on my stream.
I was channeling your type of humor there, John. I'm surprised you didn't pick it up.
Yeah.
No, I get it. Yeah. I made a joke with Rini and it bombed.
Well, to be fair about making jokes with Rini, that she does not have. She doesn't understand a lot of our jokes because she didn't live here. She lived in Taiwan most of her life.
And I made a joke
so
with
she's
that.
never seen all the sitcoms and all this. There's our references. She does not get our references hardly at all.
Right.
Have you seen every Bugs Bunny cartoon? No. That's how Rini is.
Yeah.
So you have to realize that when you start making jokes and references, she's not going to get them.
I had Ali Sanguius on last week, and she was talking about how like everybody in Comicsgate are haters and stuff like that. And I was just, it was like the last thing we were saying. I was like, well, we got to go. I got to get to the clan meeting and put my hood on. And her eyes got big, and I was like, it was a joke. You were just talking about haters. It was, oh, okay. So I wonder if she'll ever talk to me again.
Probably not. Probably not.
And Lacey Lee is the only girl that I know that gets men's humor, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. She's never seen Blazing Saddles. No. Well, you guys, I just saw Die Hard for the first time last week.
Oh wow! Well, how was that? That must have been an experience.
I joked that I never saw it, and that was my controversy. Ethan's got his controversy. Eric July's got his. My controversy was that I never saw Die Hard.
I think yours is far worse.
Mine was more egregious. Right? Yeah.
So what did you think? What did you think?
So it was playing in the theater. So I told my wife, I said, I never saw Die Hard. It's in the theater. So my wife was nice, and she bought tickets. And last Wednesday, a week from today, we went to go see Die Hard in the movie theater, and it was excellent. Mm-hmm. It was absolutely excellent. And when Die Hard came out, it was such a phenomenon that I'm that kind of guy that, you got to like it. So therefore, I put up my force fields, and I don't Like I just started listening to U2, the band U2, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, because everybody liked U2, and I'm like, I don't like this band. I'm not gonna like it, you know. So I saw it. It was excellent, and my wife was
Mr.
like,
John, you are a contrarian.
yes, I'm absolutely contrary. And my wife goes, you know what? I'm glad I saw it. She enjoyed it in the theater, and it was funny because it's inside of a building and there's construction.
Yeah,
I'm watching it and I'm going to my wife. If that's the that scene that going through and the steam shooting and everything,
yeah.
I go, those guys would be dead. If what freaking building is this where there's steam shooting out? If this building, they shouldn't be in it yet. This building should be condemned because steam is superheated. These people should all be dead. My wife goes, just watch the movie. And then Bruce Willis throws somebody through the wall, and the walls just, I was like, those metal studs, they're not going to break through those. You know what I mean? Like the sheetrock is going to break, and then the guys, she's like, just watch the freaking movie. And then I stopped. I go, look at the pipes over there. Who runs pipe? You know, we were laughing.
Your wife has a point, John.
What? Just shut up and watch the movie?
Your wife has a point. Yeah, watch the movie.
And then
I don't watch that many movies, but when I watch this stuff, I try very hard not to put in, well, that telephone pole doesn't look that good, or I'm a comic book guy, and this storytelling was, I just try to enjoy the movie. I don't try to rewrite the movie, because a lot of comic book reviewers review movies, and they're just rewriting the movie. Well, I would have done this.
I do. I rewrite them all.
I didn't rewrite the movie. I thought the script was
I try not to do that. I tried my best not to do that.
I'm just talking about the construction. My comments were the everybody was smoking. Watch that movie. How, like, a movie made in, what was it, 1984, I think, 1983. Everybody in the background had cigarettes. Everybody smoking. Guys throwing cigarettes. You don't see that anymore. That took me back. The hair was amazing. Everybody's hair was
well.
Was good.
These days they'd be smoking weed instead.
And the background music was really bizarre. Watch Die Hard again and pay attention to the music. You know, what do they call that? Incidental music. It was really, really bizarre. You know, I don't know if that was just the way it is in the 80s. And I
remember the scene in Die Hard where he takes off his shoes on the plane.
Right.
And he takes off his shoes in the hotel because he liked to feel
the guy told him.
And that was the whole callback why he didn't have his shoes on the rest of the movie. So I don't know what that says about me, but that's I remember these little things.
Especially across the broken glass.
Well, that's just it. They didn't show him. They didn't show him walking across the glass. They let the audience understand. And I tell you, that was a brilliant choice, because I was getting ready to watch hit feet on glass, and they didn't. He said, shoot the glass. They cut away. They come back. He's taking glass. I tell you, what I imagined in my head was a million times gorier than I'm sure what they would. And I thought that was brilliant. They let the audience be intelligent. And I think that's one of the reasons why the movie was so successful. I think a movie came out today would be 10 times gorier. And then the Hans Gruber would be like, this is why I'm doing everything, because he would just spell out.
In other words, it would be.
And also today, Bruce Willis would be a pregnant black lesbian in a wheelchair. So there's that.
Well, there's that.
Yeah.
And Bruce Willis was a movie star. I got to say, every time that guy was on the screen.
Well, he was so big on Moonlighting. That was such a good show. I'd like to rewatch it. It's one of my favorite shows of that time.
And Sybil
that I actually taped on VCR. The chemistry that they had was just magical. It's very rare you get that on TV. I'm sure if I watched it now,
the biggest
I would say the story's bad, it's cheesy and stuff. But at that time, they had such chemistry in the Sybil Shepherd.
Yep.
That he was really flying.
The biggest line of Die Hard would be "Yippee ki yay, other trucker."
Yeah,
so there you go.
It was good, and I can't help but watch it as a
line.
Well, Nick, when you watch things, do you, like when you read comic books, do you like look at the graphic design and stuff like that and be like, this was a poor choice?
Well, yes. I mean, I can't help it.
I've been doing my job for 25 years. Of course, I was watching.
I was in animation. I was in the animation industry. I mean, so I study movies. I study the way cameras, being used, the acting, like the dialogue, everything. I can't help it.
You can't turn off what you're trained to do.
And the funny thing is that as you go on, you like less and less, but the things that are great, you love even more. And so you kind of have to live off those really great works of art. And you have to, unfortunately, I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate, but that's what you have to kind of revisit in order to nourish yourself, is what I find. So there's not much that I like. I don't like very many comics.
Oh, really?
Sad to say. I don't like very many movies. Sad to say, but the ones that I do like, I absolutely love, so.
Talking about, I can't
Sorry about that phone dying.
What's that?
My phone was dying. I had to get the charger.
Okay. My wife and I, we were watching horror movies. We went through a horror movie phase, and we watched The Exorcist. It was a movie that we both haven't seen since we were kids. And she's like, I don't know if I want to watch this. And that's one of the few movies that actually scares me. So we put on our break and we watched it. And there's the scene where the mother is in the doctor's office. First off, the doctor's smoking a cigarette, offers her a cigarette, made me laugh. And then I go, oh my God. And she got all scared. I rewind it. And I go, look at the piping in the background. Who ran that electrical? And she was like, what did you scare? I almost wet my pants. She thought, oh my God. I'm like, I'm sorry.
Hey,
that piping
I
is
noticed all
the devil.
I noticed all the phone and cable boxes on the side of the house. Hey, there's drop wires here. I swear to God. I go, oh, they had cable. Oh, this house has 5. The more modern houses, they have 5. Watch HGTV,
My friend Donna was going, well, what do you do? I said, because when I tell them I'm an electrician, they think I'm just making splices and lights all day long. But I'm like, no, it's a construction electrician. I go, you see those pipes on the wall over there? How they're going up, those 3-inch pipes that carry the pipe? And she just goes, those pipes didn't exist until you just pointed to them. Like, I go, yeah.
That's true.
Good electrical work, you don't notice until either if you notice it's bad or it's not working anymore. But good electrical piping is designed to, so when I'm watching The Exorcist and I notice that the piping is not at a perfectly parallel, but it's 3 degrees off, that was just as scary as if Satan showed up and started to take over a little girl's body.
Just as scary.
But I guess we're winding down, and we've been talking for 2.5 hours, and I can see Marcus is struggling to stay awake. So anything what's that?
I'm okay. My phone was going to die.
Oh, okay. Anything anybody want to say? Anything anybody want to bring up? We'll give everybody. I talked enough. So anybody want to say anything? I guess I guess at this point it's safe to say Mandy's not showing up.
Yeah.
It's okay. Cooper is just as good looking, so we're fine.
I think so.
There you
go.
I
know.
There you go.
Remember,
I even have boobs. I even have boobs too. So.
Very nice.
Buy my comic or Cooper feet pics. There you
yeah.
Or else.
Freakso pics. There you go.
I think like there's a lot to talk about, especially when it comes to like how independent comics can be marketed, and that's just because obviously I've got experience with that, and I'm looking at how things are done, and I think that there's been a lot accomplished, but I think a lot of that has been accomplished because of external forces. Now, I want to give credit where it's due. Those external forces were heinous, and there's only a certain type of individual who can A, survive that, and B, thrive in that kind of environment, and I'm thinking about EVS. I'm thinking about, like those individuals that really took the brunt end of a lot of what was going on in this culture.
Imagine in early 2016, what I don't know. Maybe
some of the things they put Zach through just blow my mind.
Yeah, Zach.
Yeah.
This stuff that I heard about that he doesn't talk about. He had stalkers. He had people coming to his house.
He had somebody go to his kid through the Xbox to talk shit about him.
Oh, really? I didn't hear that.
Yes.
Pizza Medi got swatted. Pizza Medi of all people.
Yeah.
Pizza Medi.
The guy's making $2 newsprint comic books.
Yeah. He's a target for sure.
And we're the bad guys.
Totally.
Just so everybody knows that the end of the comic book industry ultimately earned their fate. They earned this shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
so before you start feeling bad about it or feeling bad for them, they earned all of it.
Well, you got to understand too,
and more.
You got to understand too. Like, if you're an outsider and you're not a collector, and you talk to somebody about the shenanigans that are going on in this industry and with
They
the
would think we're making it
professionals.
up.
You can't even explain it to them because they won't even accept it. They're like, no, that can't be. That can't
I
be
really
real.
wish somebody with talent would make a documentary about Comicsgate. You know, I don't have the talent, the ability.
Too much of it's lost.
Yeah.
EVS has talked about that like a couple of years ago when I first got in. And a lot of like when Zach was on Twitter, he used to battle and he wiped all that out when he left Twitter. A lot of that's gone. You know, stuff like Joe Quesada basically told everybody to try to get Zach to kill himself.
Right.
Literally. Right. And they followed him around at a convention trying to snap his PTSD.
There was one,
this is a guy who went to Afghanistan and Iraq in two, sir. And he was a Marine and in the Army. He did it twice.
Right.
And these people are trying to have him in PTSD to take a swing at somebody so they can get him in jail and just completely ruin his life.
It just shows you how immature and babyish they are. Like,
and I missed all that.
They sent him a picture. One of them sent a picture of his butthole.
What?
Yeah, I heard that.
Sent a picture.
And this was all before, like 2015,
okay. I misheard what you said. It was a lot.
We missed all that.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was, but around 2015, I got really tired of Marvel and DC. And I don't remember when Zach.
That was all new Marvel now. Everybody.
But I just happened to catch on at the beginning of Zach. So I remember all of this. I remember emailing him getting mad that I didn't get a link to the Dark Roast. Like, dude, I've been following you from the beginning and I'm not part of the Dark. And I was one of his insiders. If you remember, he talked a few times about there was an electrician at Marvel. That was me.
Oh,
you know, yeah.
And just so we're clear, Heather Ontos is a cum dumpster.
Thanks for demonetizing my channel and getting me. Last time I had you on, you got me a strike for using Winston Churchill's speech. So thanks a lot, Cooper.
Wow.
Heather Ontos, I would love to talk to her. Like, honestly, like I would love to hit a button so she can't just turn off the camera. I would love to talk to her for an hour, you know, and I'll be civil. We'll talk, you know, I would love for Heather Ontos to understand that without her, there would be no Comicsgate. Like without
allegedly, is that better?
Well, and the thing is, she won't come on because
she won't. It's a pipe dream. I know.
She if she did, she would be revealed.
Right.
She would reveal herself, right?
Like Zach said, we have to be total monsters so they could behave the way they do and feel justified.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and I honestly, like, we really do have to start thinking if this industry is going to keep going, if it's going to be healthy, you know, we really have to be thinking about where our market is and how to expand that. And, you know, we got to think outside of the subset. We have to start, you know, thinking a little larger and trying to cooperate, I think, a little bit more. That means we join.
Everybody else I talk to is artists and creators. You're the first person with a publishing background. You know, you have a different skill set than most of it. So you're coming. I'm looking at it like this. You're coming at it like this. And to be quite honest, it's really refreshing. It's a little scary too, to be honest. You know, sometimes you say things and I'm like, oh, that he's describing me, but just because
I'm describing myself as well. Like I'm very much a victim of comic books. Like absolutely love them. I can't. You know, victim of comic books. I mean, I've been smitten. You know, I can't let it go. I can't stop thinking about them. I absolutely love the medium. You know, all that stuff. So it's very easy for me to fall into the myopic way of thinking. You know, it's very easy for me to recall the things that have been successful in the past and think, well, what if I could revive that? Maybe it could be successful again. And it's like, yeah, maybe. But what if you actually brought in some new, or I shouldn't even say new. These, like, some of the things that I'm saying are actually, most of what I've said today isn't new at all. These are like marketing 101. Like, if you know anything about marketing, you know.
You went to school of visual arts. Did you learn marketing? Cooper, did you learn
marketing? No, not at all. Marketing.
Yeah, so this is wonderful to me. You know, this is very helpful. You know, maybe someday in the future, this is stuff that I can implement. But at the very least, you give me stuff to think about. And from a couple of the comments in the chat, people think you're spot on.
Yeah, like I said, it's nothing. I don't want to pretend like these are my ideas. You know, these are tried and true.
It's the comic books. You got to invent. Stan Lee didn't to claim for every one of his ideas. You could do the same.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Sorry. As I said, I've invented the entire marketing industry.
There you go. There you go. Believers.
But
I was there when I created Superman.
But yeah, it would be better if you know, and I don't mind talking to people. Like if someone's got something that they want to shoot past me, a question that they have about like how to market something, or like you're talking about digital, the idea that I have for digital is one of many. Like there are so many different ways of handling digital. It all depends on your business model and more specifically on that profile. But like I said, everything I've been talking about is not new. And we should be talking about it more. We should be cooperating more. We should be thinking. When I say cooperating, I really mean like we should have collective. I hate that word.
Me too. That word makes me shudder, but I think I know where you're going.
Yeah, but how about cooperative? Right? We should be cooperating with our various books and wares and so on to get them into people's hands.
Well, that's
to get them on people's radar.
And I got distracted because I'm a crazy person. When I had Eric July on, my hope, well, besides talking to Eric July, and because whatever, I'm a comic book person, and so is he. But I asked him point blank. I said, "You are the guy with the resources now. You just made a $3 million comic book. You got the back. You could be the guy. You could be the Stan Lee. You could be the one. Like, okay, Cooper's making a comic book. Marcus is making a comic book, and we just do the writing and send it to the July factory, the Ripper factory, whatever you want to call it, and they make almost like what Image started out as being, like a house of ideas, and then that we could get into comic book stores, because I would love for my comic to be in a comic book store. Again, like everything I'm talking about is a love letter to old Spider-Man and Fantastic Four stuff that, like, if you saw me gush this Sunday about Keith Pollard's Thors, I would love to go into a comic book store and it's sold next to Fantastic Four.
It's in the works. It's currently in the works.
And Eric July, he was coy. He was like, let's do this first, but I got plans down the road. I would love that, and again, this is what you're saying. Like, I don't want Eric July to be my boss, but I would like Eric July to be my partner, and he, now that he has art director, we're real good. Like, okay, we got to work on this. This isn't good enough for me to, pump 20 grand in and send this out to all the stores. I think that would be wonderful. Make a working alternative. Like, somebody brought this up to Ethan Ben Skyver. I remember it just happened to be, I was working overnights in one of his 6-hour streams. He actually brought the guy on to talk, and I think the guy got intimidated and didn't really make his point, but he was saying, like, why not have a Comicsgate publishing house, and what they're not going to tell Marcus, no, we don't like that story. No, whatever, you got to hit certain aesthetic criterias or whatever, make it some sort of quality standards, and then we'll put our name on it, we'll publish it, we'll sell it, and then you still own it. Again, like what Image started out doing. I don't know if they still do it now, because let's face it, most of it is although Image is turning around too, I got to be honest. I don't know. Is this what you're talking about, Nick? Like, I would love that. Like, me, RJ, Pete Sametti, Marcus, we all get together and form some sort of, again, collective. I hate that word, but a business.
Yeah. Well, so it isn't necessarily what I was saying. I'm not averse to it either. Because what I'm hearing when I hear you talk is much about like the creative, much about like the actual publishing and
why we need guys
and
like
printing and so on, right? And so the actual product itself, I don't know if we necessarily need, like, let's say, one publishing house or anything like that. Where we could cooperate, however, is in unifying a general purpose or message when it comes to comic books. when it comes to marketing comic books, when it comes to marketing, let's say the industry, when like, let's say there's, think of it more as an advertising firm that works for all of the individual publishers rather than one sort of publishing, printing, sort of house that's going to like handle all that stuff. I mean,
So
that's
like Diamond, but not evil.
well, Diamond distributes. They don't really do much in terms of marketing.
They have like a catalog and
yeah,
stuff like
outside
that,
of the previews catalog, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking more along the lines of like how like you can do ad spending, you can do ad buys, you could do you could even do like various videos, whether that be, let's say, like a documentary on independent comics and independent, the independent comics and how exciting it is, and going to like various conventions and shooting, footage of like some of the kick-ass books that are out there that are selling well and so on.
The problem is we are too individual.
But that's exactly it. We're all our tours. We all know better. Okay, I know better than you, John. John, you know better than me. Like, it's this.
Like look. I'm going to get a little bit more political than I'm comfortable with, but look at the people who stayed with Marvel and DC. They tend to be more left wing, and I always say my politics is it's not right and it's not left. It's individualism versus collectivism.
Yeah.
And collectivism is left and individualism is supposed to be right. And I say supposed to because there's also whatever. Look at the people who never left the mainstream. These are all people who are comfortable with collectivism and whatever, and the people that left are like Ethan Van Sciver. You put 100 people in the room, that guy's going to rise up and get everybody to face him. It's just the way it is. Billy Tucci has no problems walking into a room and he's the man. You know what I mean? And Graham Nolan, that guy's going to walk in and you just can be like, who's this guy's going to kick my ass? Like, so you're paying attention to these people for various reasons, and they're comfortable with that. But like, look at all the people that stayed in Marvel and DC. They will walk into a room. They're not going to make waves. They're going to wait online to get the drinks. They're not going to be, they'll whisper to, what I mean? So they're not going to do crowdfunding stuff because all this, it's all on them. So you're going to get all of these superstars, like Aaron Lopresti and all these people. They are all individual to the nth degree. And Eric July, we're not going to get these people. It's never going to happen because it's the very nature that makes them successful is the same repellent that I'm nobody. I don't even have a comic book, and I don't want to be in a collective with other people. But
well, and that's why I was saying.
I know, but I understand
from the perspective of
that's the left. That's Marvel and DC. That's why Kelly Sue DeConnick could say these horrible things and put out shit comics because they got this infinite bag of money behind them, and we don't have it.
And that's why I was saying, like, not necessarily when you asked me, was that what I was thinking? I was like, no, not necessarily a publishing company or anything like that. Like
advertising is a good idea,
yeah, exactly. Where we have an agency or we build an agency or something like that. And what we do is we have conversations about messaging, and it's not necessarily messaging about Cyberfrog or about, Patriarch or about it's not about individual books right now. We're talking about what are we going to do about independent comics, and it doesn't have to necessarily have the CG, brand attached to it either. It can. I'm not averse to that. But if we are going to do it, it needs to be a 5, 10, 15-year plan in order to get the perception that is around CG to change.
Do you remember
if you don't accept that fact, you don't understand marketing. You don't understand messaging.
Right. I never thought of it, but now that you're talking about it, it's as blatant as the wall over here. But unfortunately, when I think of Comicsgate and I think of independent, remember that game when we were kids? It was called Football. and it just had little plastic things with cardboard stand-ups with football play, and you push the button and they just all went off in different directions. You know, that's comics.
Electronic football.
Yeah,
football.
Yeah. It was just like the field would just go, you know, and all the players. It never worked. Everybody was excited to get it. You turn the game on within 10 minutes. You're like, this was crap. But that's what comic skate is. You get a hit. Okay, we all agree. Go, and then we're all just going to vibrate off into our corners, and the ball is going to be sitting in the middle of the field. But that, you know, like we are doomed by our very nature. How is that? That'll be the
in part. But I mean, I always say, well, can't we just take all that energy and harness it through the flux capacitor? Right? There are so many individuals out there, and we have a lot of energy. We have a lot of chutzpah. We have a lot of, you know, it's there. It's in us.
Right.
I just don't. Is there. But the danger that everybody sort of on their own individual, from their own individual perspective, sees is that I don't want anyone encroaching in my. This is my playground. Like go get your own sandbox. You know. So what you have to do is instead. That's why I don't think a publishing model would work. It couldn't work.
Yeah.
Whereas an advertising agency, an advertising, you know, co-op, you know, something of that to that effect. Now, what does this look like exactly? How the heck am I supposed to know? Because everybody's supposed to come together and talk about this. And the only reason why, let me get this part out. The only reason why all these individuals could possibly talk about it, because as you pointed out, they're individual to the nth degree. The only reason why they could talk about it is because it doesn't have anything at all to do with their various publishing companies, their various brands and everything else. Everybody gets to keep their brand, but what we're going to talk about is marketing, messaging for independent comics.
But just look at it this way now to be the devil's advocate. We you know, just imagine there's two more boxes over here. We got Graham Nolan and we got Ethan Van Sciver talk about this. And then Ethan's just going to turn around and say like, well, what's in it for me? You know,
longevity.
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, but he does.
He's losing. He's bleeding just like everybody else.
You think so?
Wait till you see what his next sales are going to be. You think he's going to do another 1.4 million campaign?
I don't know. Well, Graham Nolan. I think Graham Nolan is the slow moving snowball. That's, you know, like his comics.
Ethan,
comics.
If his campaign grew, Core Draft grew, Aaron's pressures about the same.
If Ethan is going to do more than 1.4,
I'm sorry, Nick. I was
going to say, no, I'm talking over you. If Ethan is going to do more than 1.4, either he has to change something internally, or he's got to get more cheap heat.
Which is probably why it's back in July.
There's no other way of it happening. He has to change something that he's doing, or he's got to wait for some other scandal.
Or generate one. Which
Did
is
anybody just see that
common practice within
the Wreck Planet campaign, he added all sorts of figures and stuff to make that people buy that. All the extras on his campaigns. This campaign so far doesn't have as many extras, other than the Matchbox cars. He added those. If we got to this thing, everybody's going to get a Heather Sweet. I don't remember it all because I really wasn't involved. I just kind of watched it. I didn't back it like that because I just care about the books. I don't care about all the other stuff. You can give me all the trading cards you want. And, great, I got a trading card. Well, what am I going to do at 50 years old? What am I going to do with the trading card? I'm not collecting. I'd rather read the book. But if I could buy the books without anything, that'd be great.
I back
but I understand how the stretch goals work, and they need to add on. He added on stuff to push that campaign over and do better than Cyberfrog. One, I don't think this one. I think you're right. This one is not tracking. It's doing well. I mean, anybody gets $500,000 on a campaign has to be happy, but it's not going to make $1 million.
Yeah, and we're not talking about like would we with the lower tier creators, are we envious, jealous, or aspirational to the numbers that EVS are pulling in? We don't care. That's not the conversation that's happening here.
Right.
The conversation that's happening is from a marketing perspective, and we're talking about numbers in terms of sales, in terms of attrition. Like, all you have to do is, you don't even have to look at the amounts. The dollar amount is irrelevant. Look at the number of backers.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
the number of backers is more,
makes a lot of sense, and I think it's like the pre-Kings, like T-Bunny and myself, and well, again, I don't have a comic out, but like, the second circle of Comicsgate. Maybe we are the one, because I really don't see Graham or Aaron Lopresti or Ethan, to their way of thinking. It's kind of like, okay, so you want to ride my coattails? You want me to give, you know what I mean? Like, why would the top tier want to do this?
Well,
but I think,
let me tell you what a friend of mine proposed.
That realistically could do it and have the most to benefit from.
A friend of mine named Wyatt Eastman proposed that, like a marketing class, basically, for smaller creators. Just teaching them basic marketing. Because
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and just, I mean, I honestly, I said this today. We just need to let those guys do what they're going to do. We're not in that reality. We're never going to be in that reality.
I look at them.
They're in an echelon that is so far above.
I'm gonna stop you. I'm gonna stop you right there. Too many times I've been in meetings like this with small companies who think that they can never catch the big fish, and it's not true at all.
Well, that's not really what I meant. What I was meaning is we're to expect them to lift us up is not the right attitude to have.
Yes, okay, I agree.
Aspire to be them someday is the right attitude to have.
Well,
because the discussions I'm seeing today were like, well, they have a responsibility to reach down and pick us up.
No,
but they don't.
No.
They really don't.
No.
Our responsibility is to aspire to get to that level.
Our responsibility is to put out a good comic book that people like and make a couple of bucks in the
okay, so I agree with all of that, but
I gotta work.
Sorry.
Oh, you got to go to work?
Oh, tomorrow? Yeah. Well, sometime today.
Yeah, I'm on vacation. Do you
Not right now. Eventually, yeah.
Well, I'll just touch this a little bit here. Okay, do we need to aspire? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's just life. Do we need to make a good product? Yeah, absolutely. Are they going to think that we're only asking them for something and nothing in return? Well, that's folly. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what you have. It doesn't matter how rich you are, how big you are. No one's going to do something for you for nothing.
Absolutely.
So the only question here is, what is the value proposition?
Right. Yeah.
For them, that's what they're going to ask. They're going to look at this and they're going to be like, well, if there's no value, then, so basically what you have that's going on between the four of us is a nascent conversation. That is to say, something that is only beginning, that it doesn't really have form or structure quite yet. We haven't framed all of the problems, or at least the primary problems.
But we're asking the right question.
We're starting to ask questions. Hopefully they are the right questions in the chat, and over time, more people are going to comment. We're going to see more questions and things like that come up until the point where that nascent conversation starts to get more meat on it, get more bones on it. And ultimately you get to a place where you start to look at the value of whatever it is that we're building. And if that value has value, if it has value for Ethan, no matter how big he is, well, he's going to at least listen.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So the only question is, what's the value of the thing that we're talking about? At this point, what we're talking about is, can we get our independent comics, or comics in general, but let's start somewhere independent. Can we get independent comics in front of more people? That's the only question here. Like, we want more buyers. How do we get top of funnel? And I hear people talk about it all the time. I get into live streams and people are sort of nattering on. I don't really like comment in the comments a whole lot. But I hear people talking about it. It's the topic is brought up. They say, well, we need to get new readers. They refer to top of funnel as new readers. We need to get new readers. We need to get new, because everybody knows that there's attrition. Everybody
we all
knows,
agree with that.
Yeah, but nobody knows how to achieve that.
About the memes.
All we know is that we love 90s shit. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that.
Right.
We love 90s stuff, and we're selling to disgruntled comic buyers of a certain age. That's all we know right now. We know how to sell to them. So the question is, how do we, what is the profile that is beyond the disgruntled comic buyer?
How do we get out of the bubble?
Yeah.
Right. And there are tried and true ways of doing that. Right. But
well, I'm investing heavily in lottery tickets.
Surefire.
I think there you go.
There you go. Right.
I think we should get someone to speak for us, like Pauly Shore.
Oh, there you go. Now that Kamala Harris is good with a word. She could come on.
Good spokesperson like Pauly Shore. Yeah.
Pauly Shore.
The weasel.
Oh, too bad Gilbert Gottfried died. Yeah, there's a voice I'd listen to.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about comic books.
Sure, yeah, I'll buy it. Just shut up. Get out of here. I don't.
Affleck.
I think we did the whole gambit. We talked about like comics. We talked about how to get more customers. We talked about Die Hard. We talked about funniness and this a lot. It's funny because
comics.
Yeah, we talked about our favorite comics. It's funny because whenever a guest cancels or changes on me, and I apologize for anybody who watched Waiting for Mandy. Her family, she had his family situation. It always turns out to be interesting because I never have anything planned and I'm just like scrambling. So thank you for showing up. Thank you, Marcus.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Cooper. This was.
I hope my coffee wasn't too strong.
Oh no! I really enjoyed. I
did okay for my first time.
Oh, this was your first time on us.
On stream, yeah, basically.
Fellas, we put money in your pocket.
On the panel.
Every kid, hey! And the old New York salute.
When I go and I tweet this out, I said, "This is my first time. Everybody's got to rewatch this one."
Be gentle. Be gentle.
Do it on 1.5 speed though, because it's long.
Thank you, Abrax.
Thanks, Abrax.
Thank you, Brian. So,
thanks, Brian.
Chat. I understand if some people got upset. We did the old bait and switch. It happened a couple of weeks ago with Ethan. I don't know what happened. I think he got the days mixed up. I don't know what happened, but that turned out to be a really fun live stream talk. That's how I met Nick. And every little mistake. That's why I love Comicsgate. I met Nick through an accident, and now we're working together. Marcus just pestered me until I finally gave in and hired him. Just shut the hell up, Marcus. And Cooper, every time I turn on my live stream, he's already in my StreamYard waiting to be popped in. I was like, how'd that happen? No, I'm joking. But thank you guys. Now I'm babbling because
thank you.
And I had a blast. Thank you, Cooper. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Nick. And
a lot of fun.
And again, I'm real sorry that Mandy didn't show up. She messaged me, and I don't ask questions. When people say they got family issues, it's none of my business, But we're going to reschedule. Who knows when we will reschedule. But I would like to talk to you guys individually, because I think that's why I do my best talk is one-on-one. But thanks a lot. Anything you guys want to say, go ahead. I'll be quiet.
No. It's all good. Thanks
for community service. Good
night. Had a great time.
Thanks. And Marcus got to get to work tomorrow. I'm sorry.
Well, I don't have to get to work, but I don't sleep much past 6. So no matter when.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
I got a whole bunch of guests lined up for January already. If you have a comic that has an active campaign, message me. I have no problems helping you promote. It's all fun and games, and helping people promote gets me to meet people like Marcus and Nick and Cooper. So thanks a lot, everybody. Bye-bye. Happy New Year.
Good night.